Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears tonight as Grant Cameron will join us momentarily for a great show on the phenomena and UFOs. And before we bring Grant in, we got to say hello to everyone in the chat room tonight. Race fan in the gold medal position, Kurt M with the silver, and B with the bronze medal tonight. Who else do we have? Non-human confirmation. Welcome back. Mind voicing. How you doing? Welcome to SOR chat again. And Robert Lamoth, Griff. And who else do we got here? Jack Clark. Nice to see you. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Lee the B. Lisa C. Laura Lobbs. W. Decker. Nice to have you all here. Let us continue on here with Susie B. and Les Paul Holland. Nice to have you all here. Grant has arrived. He's looking as magnificent as possible. Look at the hat, Grant. Look at the hat. Just let it rub in there. Let it rub in. Oh, that's what a champion's going to look like this year. Okay, here we go. Continuing on with roll call. Kim Inari is here. Kim Inari will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Dogface Simon. Chastity Moore, welcome. And who else do we have? Our favorite Marine, Black Dragon. Thank you for your service, my man. Continuing on here, we have in roll call tonight. Oh, scrolling down some more. Nancy Thames, how are you, my friend? And who else? JSCO, nice to see you. And who else is here? Well, thank you, Simon, for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. Gorgeous Amy WC, thank you for coming on in. Oh, there's Cherry Pepsi Mike. Cherry Pepsi Mike will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Remember, Cherry Pepsi Mike is the inventor of the piano key tie. Yeah, still wears one. Just another guy named Harry, number 31 in your program, starting in goal from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson, there he is. Abbott Hoffman, Sandra Kincaid, thank you for joining us. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Human Carl, nice to see you. A great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. Mama Catherine, mwah. Love you, dear. Hope you're having a wonderful night. Raymond, Doc from Wyoming, good to see you both. As we continue on with roll call here, let us see who else is joining us, shall we? Let us go to Dave Walters. Nice to see you. And Nicole Sackage, nice to have you here. T-Bone, thank you for coming on in. And Thomas Rock, Vinman, Big Dog, good to have you all here again. Jessica S., Pixie Lara, the Demon, and Big Dog, thank you for that wonderful super chat. Very much appreciate the love, man. Very much appreciated. All right, continuing on here. Mexi97, Bolenia, my man. Dino Bravo and Marty Burback. Good to see you. Catherine, thank you. Mama Catherine, I love you so much. Thank you for your love with that great super chat. Greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get the radio side going here. That way we can let Bill WD-40 into the chat room to lube us up for tonight's show. I always want to go into a show nice and smooth, you know. D. Henderson, Eli McInnes, Dry Toast, the best name on YouTube right there. Charlie Don't Surf, nice to see you. Rafin, Christian Morales, Nick Adkins, good to have you all here as we continue on with our roll call. Let's continue on. Digger Dog again. Paula Fost, welcome. And who else is back? Super Knower, good to see you. And we got 30 seconds. D. Cypher, Tim Mothman and Tim Mothman's goatee, two separate entities. Corruption Czar, nice to have you here. Silent Listen, thank you for joining us. Pam Harris, thank you for coming on in. And let's see, 18 seconds. Trisha, nice to have you back. Friend of Squirrel, Ron Baca, nice to have you here. Lori Rosenfeld, good Canadian kid, how are you? And Android Paranormal, thanks for coming on in. Hi, Pammy Smith. 3 seconds, horns up, let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. A great show of information tonight as legendary researcher Grant Cameron not only prepares for another NHL hockey season, but he'll be here to talk UFOs and about the phenomena as well. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing is here with another creepy story. Then Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio will round things out with another cryptid report. All right, let's get right to it, shall we? Because we got a lot of things to talk about tonight. Grant Cameron is a legendary researcher and author, former International Researcher of the Year at the UFO Congress, and he became involved in ufology as the Vietnam War ended in 1975 with personal sightings of Charlie Red Star in Manitoba, in Carmen, home of Eddie Belfour. Yeah, that story will be released, and it has been released many a times, but these days, Grant takes different paths sometimes. This time, it's about the phenomena. What is the phenomena? Is the phenomena everything? Is it godly? Is it a trickster? Is it brought here? Or has it always been? Grant Cameron is the reason why we do this show, and this is the reason why we bring him back on. Mr. Cameron, thank you so much for coming back on Spaced Out Radio again. How you doing, my friend?
Well, thank you very much, Dave. It's an honor to be on night before the big season starts, and I'm not looking forward to too much in the Jets. They had too much money, and so signed 2 guys that everybody wanted out of here for $8.5 million each for 7 years. But we're going to talk UFOs. It's a little more exciting than hockey, so let's do it.
I don't know, Grant, because my Edmonton Oilers. I think this is our year. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, they always do well in the year, and then as soon as the playoffs come, they just poof out, as my mother would say. Just.
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't have to be that rude to start this show right now. You know that. It's our year,
and then we got Lori from Toronto, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, we got lots of fans here. Anyway,
No, we do.
let's get to the phenomena. It's more exciting.
All right, Grant. For a number of years, everything seemed to be segregated. UFOs was segregated from the paranormal and the supernatural and aliens and Bigfoot and everything that kind of goes on in between. But more recently, there have been a number of people who have come out believing that the phenomena is actually everything. Where do you stand on this?
I guess I started to go there in 2012 when I had this download experience that basically said, you had that question in 1975. 1975, I had 2 sightings, one in front of the car the first night. Second night, it came at me and then made a little turn and sort of flew back where it came from. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, what is this? I mean, I thought then it was ET. And basically in 2012, I got this sort of download that said, you asked that question, what was this? What's this all about? And it said it was about consciousness. So I sort of made this move away from the nuts and bolts UFO stuff, and a lot of people sort of attacked me for it. Figured I'd lost my marbles, and now it's more common that people are talking about it. And the more I go along, the more I think that this is all going to be the same thing, and it's all going to end up dealing with the theory of reality. I think it's going to be almost what Chris Bledsoe talked about. It's going to end up being a spiritual phenomena, or when you start looking at reality. If you look at the example I always use is the human cell. So in 1665, we discovered the cell. And then in 1835, they discovered that the cell was dividing. And they just said, oh, it's just a cell. It divides. No big deal. And then we discovered that the more we learn, the more we realize that the cell is more and more complex and more complex. We realize that there's a trillion atoms that come in every time a cell divides. A trillion atoms come in from God knows where, and they all know exactly where to go, the 3-dimensional spot where they're supposed to go at the right time in the right place. And these spindles form, and then they separate, and you have 3 billion base pair DNA that's formed that matches the other DNA in the cell, and this is all done in 24 hours. And there's 330 billion cells in the human body that die every single day, 200 different types of cells, and those are replaced by 330 billion cells of all exactly the same type. And the more you look at it, the more you realize this thing is way more complex than it's starting. And that's what's with the UFO phenomenon. The more you look at it, the more you dig in, the more complex it gets, and the more the more you realize you're getting closer to reality. But the key that I would say is you're never going to see reality. It's the old idea that you're always going to be looking at a desktop icon. You're looking at something between us and reality. You can never see reality. All we're doing in science and ufology is we're describing what's going on. We're not explaining anything. We're describing Moses goes down to the Red Sea, takes his staff, he hits the Red Sea divides, the children of Israel go through, they go to the other side, he goes to the other side, he taps his little staff on the water, the sea goes back together again, and it's like, wonderful, nice little trick. Now, how do you do the trick? You're just describing it, you're not explaining anything. I think the one thing that I got a revelation, I don't think I've talked about it since I've talked to you, and that was Mike Cleland. Mike Cleland, I think you've had him on, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay, so Mike Cleland is the owl guy. He's famous for the owls, and he's got these obsessions and synchronicities with owls. And his whole life, he's got thousands and thousands of people contact him about owl stories, about four-foot owls, and even Chris Peters, who's the stepson for Barbara Streisand, told me about his 5-foot owl. I said, a 5-foot owl? He said, yeah, it was sitting in the bathroom. His wife described it. And he went running in there, and there was this 5-foot owl. I said, you sure it wasn't 4 foot? He said, no, it was 5 feet tall. It was standing on the kitchen counter, or on the counter in the bathroom. He went to get his camera. He went back in. The thing was gone. And so when Mike Cleland did a regression, he was looking at an event that occurred in Utah. He was sleeping on the side of the road, and he had this out-of-body experience, and he was inside the craft, and he slipped into this little gray, and then he was walking down, and he suddenly realized he was this little tiny gray, and he has this sort of encounter where they say, you agreed to this. And suddenly he realized that he had agreed to come into the world and to deal with this owl thing. And he got all upset because he said, you didn't tell me it was going to be this bad. It was going to be, there's much pain. And he got all upset. And then during the regression, it was done by Yvonne Smith. She asked him this question. He said before the regression, he said, when I'm under, ask me about the owls. Ask why I'm so obsessed with owls. And so she does. And this is one of the most insightful things I've ever heard in ufology or in the phenomena or in anything. She says to him, so Mike, what's with the owls? Why are you so obsessed with owls? And he starts to channel. He actually asked Yvonne Smith, he said, was I channeling? And she said, I don't know if you're channeling. And he goes from this little whispering guy who's talking to he says, the owls are not important. The owls don't mean anything. The owls are just a symbol. The owls are just a symbol that's attached to a door. It's the door that's important. You're in this little hallway. You go and you see the symbol on the door and you say, hey, why is this owl doing on the door? And then you go, hey, I wonder what's behind the door. And you open the door and you see this vast, unexplored universe behind the door. That's what's going on. Whatever this phenomena is, and I call it the phenomena of the intelligence, whatever this intelligence is, it's moving us from one door to the next door, to the next door. And you see this UFO on the door and you say, man, what is this? My experience in 1975, this glowing plasma object flew in front of the car. And I go, what is this? What is this? It's a symbol on the door. And when I went to the door and opened the door, I realized it got more complex. And then they go you to another door, another UFO experience. And you keep going. And the more you look at it, the more it's like the cell. It gets more complex and more complex and more complex. And you get closer to reality, but you're never, ever going to see reality. And that's what I think is going on. So all the phenomena are the same thing. They're all bizarre things that they're doing. I even did the lecture when you had that conference one time. I did the Theory of Wow lecture. And I've got a book that'll eventually be coming out on the Theory of Wow. And that's basically what it is. All they want you to do is go, wow, what the hell is going on here? And when you do that, then you explore. And that's how science and ufology move down the road. Unless there's curiosity, there's going to be no science. It's like Max Planck when he was 1874. His professor, he was the godfather of quantum physics. His professor said to him in 1874, I said, Max, don't go to physics. We've got it all figured out. There's going to be nothing to do. And that was 1874. And we always have this idea, oh, we've got one more piece of the puzzle to put in. My experience is the more you look, the more complex it gets and the more magnificent it gets. And that's basically what I think is going on. So they're trying to get you to go, wow. They're trying to get you to go to the door. They're trying to get you to open the door. And then you realize the universe is much more complex and much more complex. And you just keep going on and going on. And that's how science advances, through curiosity. Curiosity makes you explore. If there's no curiosity, there's no exploration, and everything shuts down. They want you to be curious. They want you to move along and explore.
I want to ask you this. Is the phenomena God? Is the phenomena godly?
Well,
or is it something completely different?
Okay, that's where I go to the idea that I have the right brain, left brain, which I think is a key thing that ufology and science leaves out, is the idea that left brain is rational, analytical thought. It's the idea that there are objects, there's separation, there's me and you. The right brain, the female right brain, says everything is one thing. This is this mystical idea, the oneness of everything. Everything's connected, everything's alive, and everything's conscious. So the left brain wants to set everything up as nouns. So there's me and you, there's the good Jets and the bad Oilers, and the referee is playing for the Oilers, and he's paid off, and you guys are dirty players, and that's the left brain. The left brain, and everything's a noun. So you have one big giant noun called the universe, and then you have another noun. It's made up of smaller nouns called galaxies, and smaller nouns called planets, and smaller nouns called objects and atoms, and you go down and down and down. Everything's an object. Everything is separate from everything else, and it's all inert. And so the idea of calling it God is the same thing. It's giving it a noun. It's not a noun. It's one. It's the one, whatever the one is. It's all alive. It's all conscious, and it's a verb. There is no nouns. It's all just one thing. It's like when you fall into the water and you drop down into the water, and that we are in the water. We're very deep into the water. We're in the darkness of the water, and we can't see anything. And then from time to time, someone will have a UFO experience or a channeling experience or a near-death experience or whatever, and they'll suddenly float higher into the water, and they'll be able to see more because they're closer to the surface and there's more sun. And they'll see a fish, and they'll say, "Hey, Mr. Fish, what level am I on? Where am I? Where is God?" And they say, what are you talking about, you idiot? You're in the water. It's just water. It's all water. And that's the whole deal. We're in the water. We're just at these different levels where we can see different things. And God is not a noun. It's what it's all made of. And it's this concept that it's all alive, it's all consciousness, it's all one thing, and we are part of it, and we may be God ourselves. So God is a verb. God is the sort of the ground force. It may be almost like Desta Barnaby, who helps me edit books. Her channeling, with the way she had described it, is everything is sort of in the beginning, and then things start to move. So once you have vibration, the illusion starts, and the world starts to develop. And we are at a very low vibrating part of the world. So consciousness, if you want to go into the noun thing, it's a thing that doesn't vibrate, and when it vibrates, the illusion starts, and the different worlds are created. And the higher realms that we talk about, UFO realms or spiritual realms, are higher vibrating realms. We're at a very low vibrating realms, and we can go to those realms. We just don't know how to do it, and that's where we're being taught. We're not being given stuff. This is not a socialist handout by Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. This is basically them getting us curious and making us figure it out for themselves. They are not going to give us anything that you can't do your kids' homework. And that's basically what I think is going on. We're being led, we're being inspired to go and figure it out for ourselves.
That's one thing that I have learned through the phenomena, as well, in the many conversations I have had, not only with you, but others that we know, like Nicole Sackich and Tim Senor and many others. I've had this conversation with David Weatherly, who, he's very much on the phenomena bandwagon and everything being tied together as well. The way I look at it is the phenomena is very, very, it can be very, very pleasing. It can be very, very hurtful. It gives you what you don't think you can handle. It's very, very pushy in a way. It can be a trickster. It can be vicious at times. It can make you laugh. It can make you cry. I mean, it's like it just, I don't know how else to explain it, Grant, but it's just there, and you have to follow that path once you've recognized it.
What I would say is that we are the trickster. We are the phenomena. We are the ones that are there. I don't believe there is any there, as Jim Semivan said. There does not appear to be any there. We are making the experience. Like you have a near-death experience. You say, if somebody has a good near-death experience, somebody has a bad near-death experience. So what is God? Some kind of idiot that gives people bad near-death experiences? And what you see with near-death experiences is that the people who have the bad near-death experiences are trying to control the thing. They're afraid to let go. And I've done the psychedelics. I'm doing my second book on psilocybin, and that's what I learned. The number one lesson was surrender is the rule. Surrender is the only rule. Is this idea of surrender, that we are creating the phenomena that we are seeing, and we are placing the sort of the stones on our own path. And you can see that through one of the phenomena that's related is lucid dreaming. That was done at Stanford University, where they taught these students how to go into a lucid dream. And what they would do in the lucid dream, once they realized they were lucid in a dream, they would move their eyes from left to right, left to right, to left to right. And this would pick up on, they had them on an EEG, and they would pick this up. They would see the EEG going back and forth, and they would realize the person is in the dream, and they would give them tasks to do. And in there, this is where this idea was that we create, as Seth, the first channeler from the New Age movement said, you create the everything around you. You manifest everything around you. There is no other rule. And that's in lucid dreaming. That's what they found in the lab at Stanford, was that if you see an evil alien or an evil spirit or whatever in a lucid dream, do not run away. If you run away, you're in a lot of trouble. Same thing happens in psychedelics. Go towards it, be curious, give it a big hug and kiss, and it will turn from an evil alien into a positive being and give you a message. We are the ones that are controlling it. I don't believe there's any out there. And that's what Jim Semivan said. And Jim Semivan, you got to remember, Jim Semivan got the actual briefing. I said that back in 2016 already. I was told who briefed him. I told when he was briefed, I heard that whole thing. And he's now confirmed that he got a classified briefing. And that's what he's saying. And that's what the government is basically saying. Yes, this phenomenon is real, and we haven't got a clue what's going on. So you have that sort of thing. And you talked about this thing about the trickster. Jim Semivan talked about that as well, which is very insightful. He said the phenomena drags you along. The phenomena he's really mad about. He said, I can't stand this. He said they take you along, they tease you, they lie to you, they move you along, but they never take you home to meet the family. And that's how it works. It's like they're not going to finish it off. They take you along, and they're trying to keep you on the edge of your seat all the time, where you keep going. They're never going to hand it over. They're never going to land on the White House lawn and tell us what's going on. That's what we do. We go into a foreign country and we say, we're here to bring you freedom and democracy, Jesus and McDonald's. And next thing you know, they're pointing guns and telling us, get the heck out of here. Leave us alone. Who the heck do you think you are? That's the way we do it. They're doing it the other way. They're just trying to drag us along with curiosity and make us figure it out for ourselves. And that's why we came here. We came here to learn. We didn't come here to get handouts. And that's basically sums it up for me. And that's where I listen to these people at the high end. I always said these aviary guys, whether it's Kit Green or Hal Puthoff or Jim Semivan or Bob Bigelow, I said, I don't care what you think about these people. Listen very carefully to these people, because they're basically telling you what's going on. From time to time, it'll slip. And that's what they asked Bob Bigelow. Bob, what was it all about? Skinwalker Ranch. You owned it for 20 years. What was it all about? Without missing a beat, he said immediately, it's all about messaging. It's about messaging and games. It was games and messaging. And that's what it's about. It's about giving us a message. It's about leading us along. And we're here to figure it out. And we're here to learn stuff. We're not here to get stuff and to be given stuff. This is not Santa Claus. This is like a school.
Well, you know what? I think that we are being schooled as we got about 3 minutes to go, Grant. I mean, the question is, what is this schooling about? Is it about trying to bring ourselves to a higher consciousness, bring ourselves closer to spiritual purity? What do you think it leads?
Well, I think it's all the idea of Maya, the Hindu idea of Maya, that we are in this thing. We're learning lessons. I had this whole. I did an interview with a guy. There was one guy in a float tank. The one girl was from Edmonton, your favorite place there, and she was a regressionist. And then there was a girl who had a near-death experience that got thrown off a motorcycle, face first into the concrete. And then Roland Griffiths, who ran the psilocybin research, has now talked about this as well, is that you get to this thing where you suddenly realize everything is perfect. Everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. And the missing component is that we agreed to this. We agreed to come in here and we agreed to do certain things, and that it's all going along the way we planned it. And that when we die, we end up in the situation where we go in front of a council and they say, how did it work out, Dave? How did it work out? And you can't bring up Hillary Clinton. You can't bring up the mother-in-law. You can't bring up the dog that ate your homework, because they're going to go, time out, time out. This is about you. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. You planned this. How did it work out? And that's what we're in here. We're in here to plan, to learn whatever lessons we are. And you and I have some sort of lesson to teach people on UFOs and reality and that sort of stuff. And I always say, it's like people consider life to be a trial. I say, whatever happens, you and I got to play in the Super Bowl. We got to play in the Stanley Cup. Every single day we're in the Stanley Cup playing the game. And we couldn't ask for more. And if you appreciate what you've got, and you'll do the best you can to do whatever job you came in here to do. That's all we got to do is figure out, why did we come here? What do we, what question are going to be asked when we leave? And why are we here? And are we doing what we said we were going to come here to do?
Well, you know what? The question is, what are we supposed to do? Because I think for the most of us, the minute the phenomena hits us, we don't really know how to react, as we got about a minute to go, Grant.
Well, again, this comes down to the whole idea that if everything's perfect, everything is going exactly the way it's going to be. We get into the left brain mode where we say, what should we fear? Who can we blame? And can we make some money from this? And that's not the way it works. It's about the fact that everything's going exactly the way it's supposed to be going, and that you're probably doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And you look at things that you're doing and realize that this wasn't chance. The fact that you're running the show is not chance, that you probably planned to do this. And you and I had an agreement before we came into the world. And we said, I'm going to work. We live in Winnipeg. You're going to live in God's country in Vancouver there. And you're going to do a show, and I'm going to write books, and we're going to do this. And we had this all planned. And I don't think a lot of stuff is we believe in this random world that's all random. And you start looking at the cell, the trillion atoms that come in to form a second cell, and within 24 hours and stuff like that. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. I mean, this is all happening by accident. This is absolutely insanity. The more you realize, the more you look, the more you realize that there's no chance that this is random. This is very, very complex, and it's getting more complex as we go along.
Well, Grant, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we have you for another 90 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. Grant Cameron, legendary author and researcher, breaking down the phenomena. What is it? Do you believe in it? Would you believe it's everything or nothing at all? Or maybe it's both. Spaced Out Radio continues with Greg Cameron right after this. Don't go anywhere. That was a good first half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah. Your
hair's looking high and tight today.
Yeah, I know. I got scalped there. That's why I'll talk about. I mean, if you want, I'll talk about that, about the idea of the good and the bad aliens. I mean, the bad aliens. We're going to go to another planet. We're going to steal some land. No, we're not. If I get this technology, we're going to work on the hair problem. That is important. We got to work on the hair problem. If we got this technology, we don't need to, go and take over other countries. We need to solve the hair problem. And you get the bad aliens have no hair. All of them. They all have. They're all problems with hair, and all the good aliens they look like you. They have the nice hair and the beard and these are the patterns I always pick up on when I look at how people are describing, and even the thing with the aliens. Where we get into the aliens, they don't breathe, they don't eat, they don't drink, and it's like, what the hell are we really looking at here? What's really going on here? And when you get these oddities, that's what you gotta observe. Is when you see the horizon, you gotta say, hey, is the world really flat? I mean, why is that ship disappearing? And you see these oddities, and the more you pick up on oddities, you realize, like, not this ain't ET. This is something very, very complex.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm actually going to write a book called Extraterrestrial or Maybe Not. I've got the outline, and it's when you look at it, it's pretty convincing that this is something else. This is and you see a lot of the big shots are starting to talk that way now. I mean, Jacques Vallée and a lot of them, Hal Puthoff and all these people, they basically say, nah, this is something else. It's portraying itself as ET, but it's,
I don't know. I think it's everything. I think it is ET. I think it's what ET does. I think it's what humanity does.
Yeah. Well, it could be simply a simple singularity. It's the whole idea. If there's no time and space, then how big is the universe? It's a singularity. It's right here now. That's what the beings said when I talked to the beings in Great Britain, which is kind of a weird thing. I had sort of enlightenment. Another person gave me something that fit in there, but I talked to the beings and this whole idea about, are you extraterrestrials? And they said, do you want us to be extraterrestrials? We could be extraterrestrials if you want. We could take you to our planet, but no, we've always been here. You're the visitor. And it's this whole idea that it may all be just one thing. It may all be here now. There's no time. There's no space. And it's all one little thing. It's just, there's no out there. That's what John Wheeler said. The intellectual successor to Einstein at Princeton. There is no out there. This is a participatory universe. And this is a guy that came up with black hole theory and wormhole theory and information theory and just phenomenal thinker that just basically said there's no out there. So what the hell was he talking about? If there's no out there, it's all here now. It's a singular.
I apologize for coughing into your ear. I got caught up laughing at Cherry Pepsi Mike's comment here. Dave's lesson is how to impersonate a sexy Randy Quaid. Oh my God, that got me. Got me good there, Cherry Pepsi Mike. Oh my gosh. Wes H, how you doing? And who else is coming on in here? Just hang out with
Cherry
us.
Pepsi, I'm doing Canada Dry here.
I'm doing water.
Canada Dry soda for cranberry soda.
I'm doing water.
Canada Dry. I got water here too.
I'll have my ice camp in the morning, and that'll be my sweet for the day. Mac Geek, how you doing? If you're new here, just so you know, we are a live radio show as well. So that's why we have to take our commercial breaks, but you guys get to hear behind the scenes. Hi, Bad Daddy. Nice to have you here. And if you're new here, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, as we are here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. And CS, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Made in USA, good to see you again, my man. And we got about 30 seconds here, Grant. Thank you to Simon, Big Dog, Mama Catherine, Human Carl, Lori, and Pam for the great super chats. We very much appreciate the love and support. Barry Brown, how are you? Hey, if you want to get some really cool swag, head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, because we don't have ugly swag. No, we do not. Hey, look who's here. The not funny Paul Hynek. Right there. Not funny Paul Hynek. Yep. We love you, Paul. Hope you're doing well, my man. Barry Brown, how you doing, bud? And here we go, Grant, 3 seconds. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button, our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Here we go, second half hour with the man, the myth, and the legend, Grant Cameron, UFO researcher and author. We are talking about the phenomena. So, Grant, we're going to get right to it. Where do you think the phenomena comes from then? Is it just all around us? Are we born with it? Is it internal? Is it human?
Well, again, I say it's a verb, and if there's no time and space, then it's a singularity. It's all here and now. There's no out there. As John Wheeler, the intellectual successor of Princeton to Einstein, he said, there's no out there. This is a participatory universe. We are creating the universe as we go along, or as Seth said, you manifest everything around you. There is no other rule. That's the kind of stuff that really throws people off. It's like, oh, get out of here. Like, I mean, this is insane. The idea that this simulated universe idea that you're seeing what you see, and when you turn around and don't look at it, it's not there anymore. That's the kind of stuff that's where we're headed. We're headed into this simulated universe idea that it's all one thing, and it's all a thought. It's a giant thought. It's like Maya. It's the illusion. It's the physical universe. I think in the end will fade away. It'll be like the illusion that we have that things are solid, when we know that it's like 99.999999999% space. It appears to be real, and that's the problem we have, is we're relying on perceptual reality, on what we see. And perceptual reality has always been wrong every single time. We thought the world was flat because it appeared to be flat. It makes sense. It's flat, but it turned out it wasn't. It looks like the sun's going around the earth. That's the way it appeared. Perceptual reality, it was wrong. Everything was solid. That was wrong. And it's just every time we go along, and the more we learn with science, the more we realize that everything that we believed is basically wrong, and that it's going to be this really weird world where they're playing aliens, we're playing humans. You may be an alien next time, and it's all thought. All the world's a stage. All the men, women, and aliens are but actors. They have their entrances and exits, and each man plays many roles. So it's this whole idea of what is reality. So I'm working mostly, I guess I would define my work now is the search for reality. What is actual reality? What is really going on beyond, counting how many red ones, how many green UFOs there are, and all this kind of stuff. When you start looking at the whole reality, you start to understand that it's very, very complex, and it's not what we think it is. It's going to be built on things that are indirect, almost like I remember when I was in university, first year university, the astronomy professor said, prove to me the world is round, and everybody tried to do it, and there was no way you could prove to the guy that everything is wrong, because people can say, oh, the world is wrong because there's pictures. Well, if the world is wrong because of pictures, well, then UFOs exist because they have pictures of UFOs. Astronauts said the world is round. Well, astronauts also say, Edgar Mitchell said that Roswell was real and there's crashed flying saucers and stuff like that. So you can go through and you can knock them off one after another. And basically, a lot of it is faith. We're believing things because of things we were taught. And I had the good fortune to see a UFO because if you don't see a UFO, I can see that you're going to be skeptical because when it comes to like death, when just before my father died, he saw his father, and he didn't tell me about it. But I think of the story, but I still in the back of my head, I said, I don't know if that's really true. If he really did, maybe he saw something else or whatever. But when you see it yourself, that's when it comes down to actual reality. It's what you see. It's not what you hear, because what you hear and what you analyze is left brain. And I found when my mother died, that was one of the things I discovered. I was looking when my mother was dying. I had a real bad 5 weeks as she was dying in the hospital. I was there all the time. And the thing that occurred to me was I suddenly lost my faith. Because I'd spent my whole life working on death and dying, and suddenly I'd lost my faith. And then I say to my mother, Mom, it's going to be okay. And I'd tap her on the head. She couldn't talk anymore or anything like that. And I'd say, it's going to be okay. And then I think to myself, at least I hope so. Because it was like when you build things on rational analytical thought, what happens is as Mike Tyson said, everybody talks big until you get the first punch in the face. And that's what happened. Once you get the punch in the face, then the whole thing collapses like a house of cards. And that's what happened to me. It was like my mother lost her faith. I lost my faith. It was suddenly like it was for real. She was actually dying. And that's what I found with the UFO thing, that I had the advantage that I saw UFO. I didn't hear stories about UFOs. I saw it, and I know what I saw. And the same as I had a download experience. So I know download experiences are real because I had the experience. And so you have people who are describing things based upon left brain, look in the past, what kind of material have you got, what have you read and stuff like that, which all falls apart, or actual experience, which is why you've got to listen to the experiencers, because they're actually having the experiences. Everybody can say they know what's going on based upon logic and rational analytical thought and stuff like that, but that doesn't count. It's the people who are having the experiences. And there are people who get in the field who have interacted with higher levels of whatever this phenomena is, and are able to bring it back. And those are the people I listen to.
Grant, we see many people who have had alien encounters all of a sudden be driving through the forest and have encounters with Sasquatch, or all of a sudden their house out of nowhere becomes haunted. And the phenomena just seems to follow them around once they've noticed something. This doesn't happen with all experiencers, but more and more we're seeing it happen. Why do you think this is all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork?
Well, we're in an awakening thing. We're in a thing where people have talked about the veil is thinning. That the more we talk about it, that what the phenomena is doing is raising the zeitgeist. So let me give you an example. I always talked about Bob Bigelow bought the ranch, and everybody says, "Oh, he bought the ranch, and there was these UFOs." And I said, "No, it had nothing to do with UFOs." I mean, as much as they wrote reports on UFOs and stuff, it had to do with the fact that this guy went to there and he saw this object floating around, and they were all interested in the portal, and they were interested in the woman takes the groceries in and puts the groceries in the counter, and in the puts the groceries away and goes to the next room, comes back, and all the groceries are back in the bag. It was all this weird kind of stuff that these people were trying to experience. And that's, I think, what we're looking at is the phenomena. If you're having the experience, it goes to this idea of did you agree to do this? So if you agreed to do this, then this ain't happening by chance. The fact that you have this experience, and people will always say this, they'll say, "Oh, I have this experience. I don't think I've been abducted. I think I was just talking to aliens. They come in my dreams." And then I go, "Oh, okay. Did you anything else weird happen in your life?" And they go, "Oh yeah, when I was a kid, this happened." Or 37% of all experiencers say, "Oh yeah, I had a near-death experience." And most of them say they had 2 near-death experiences. I'm going, wait, is this random? Do you think this is actually happening, that somebody gets abducted and at the same time they're getting a near-death experience? None of this stuff is random. This is all planned. This is all. So if you come in and you have this experience where you're as a kid, you're being abused or whatever, and then you dissociate, and suddenly you're talking to dead people and all this kind of stuff, and then you have UFO experiences, or the aliens come to you in your room. This is not random. This is all planned, and that's what people will say, which is one of the problems with people describing the aliens as being extraterrestrial from another planet. When you start looking at this thing, none of that makes sense. I remember asking Betty Andreasen. I said to Betty Andreasen, she had her first experience in 1946, actually having an encounter with beings. I said to Betty, I said, "Hey, Betty, did the alien ever get any older? You're like 80 years old now. I mean, you're this little girl. Now you're 80 years old. Did the alien ever get any older?" And her husband answered, Bob Lucas, said, "No, but aliens live a long time." And it's like this left brain's trying to justify this. Oh, aliens live a long time. You can ask anybody, did the alien ever get any older? Nope, the alien never got any older. And then you talk to people. I think it's 25% of all people out of the 4,200 that were done talked to by Free, that said 25% said they had an encounter with this being in a last lifetime. I mean, if the alien never gets any older, and if it was in your last lifetime, what are we looking at? What's really going on here? It's like you start looking at this stuff, and it starts to really get really weird, and you start to realize this is not what we think it is. And so you got to look at all these events and say, is this a random event? Is this something that I brought on? Is this something I'm part of it? And that's where you see these experiences. So not everybody has the experience, but when you get people like Chris Bledsoe or Sherry Wild, or these people like that, when they get it, they're getting it in spades, and that's not by chance. And then you take a look at the whole event where Sherry Wild believes it's a random event, and then she says, "I suddenly one day," she says, "I'm sitting at the computer, and I wake up, and I'm at my computer, and and I go, what am I doing? I wake up, and she looks at her computer, and she sees this typing. She goes, I never have the word program. What's this typing all about?" And she looks. "Oh, no, we're not going there. No, we're not doing that." And it was her experience. She started to write her experience. And then she said, "I'm not doing it. Nope. And then Dawes says to her, she can hear Dawes say, "Timing is everything. Timing is everything. Yeah, this is the time." And she said, "I'm not writing your damn book." And you start to see this thing that the being is actually saying, "Sherry, have you forgotten the promise that you made?" That was the book she wrote, The Forgotten Promise. "Have you forgotten the promise that you made? You came into the world and you promised to do this." And then she tells this bizarre story. I always get her to tell the story about being in the car. I said, "Sherry, tell the story about being in the car with the screen." And she says, "I'm driving along, and suddenly there's this screen by the car." And she says, "What are you doing?" "I got to drive. I can't look looking at this screen. What are you showing me?" She stops. She says, "What are you showing me?" "Oh, this is the first scene to your movie." And that's what you see this whole idea that people are being driven. They're being told to do this. I'll ask lots of people. Nancy Tremaine, who I helped publish her 2 books. I said, "Nancy," I said, do you think that you were told to write the book?" "Oh, yeah." She starts describing it. People will say this all the time. "Oh, yeah, they're telling me to write a book. They want me to talk and this sort of stuff." And you get this idea that this is not a random experience, that whatever this phenomena is, it's trying to raise the zeitgeist. So you have experiences where nowadays, say go back 100 years, nobody knew what UFOs were. The word didn't exist. Nobody knew nothing about UFOs. Area 51, nobody knew anything about Area 51. Nobody knew anything about near-death experiences. And what you have is these experiences. So the phenomena has all these people with near-death experiences, and all these people start seeing it. And Area 51 and UFO sightings and near-death experiences, all these near-death experiences since we invented CPR in the 1950s. And trauma medicine in the 1960s, and you get all these near-death experiences. So now you have a zeitgeist that's completely changed. You may not believe in near-death experiences. You may not believe in Area 51. You may not believe in UFOs, but everybody in the world, you can go to the darkest corners of the world. They know it. And Skinwalker Ranch. You know what Skinwalker Ranch? You can go to China. Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, I know what that is. And that's what they're doing. They're raising the zeitgeist. And that's what Max Planck says. You do not convince your opponent that you're right by convincing them they're wrong. Science advances when your opponent dies, and the new generation is not offended with the idea. So that's what's happening. Is they're raising the zeitgeist where all these things are happening. And then you go to like Nicole Sackage's young kid, say, "Hey, man, Will, do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in this?" "Oh, yeah." I mean, it's the old people, and that's what happens. The old people die out, and the new generation will come, and the zeitgeist is being raised. The consciousness is being raised where everybody knows what a near-death experience, even with psychedelics. People like, I just heard a podcast today. People know what DMT is People know what 5-methoxy-DMT is. Everybody knows what psilocybin is. And they've raised the zeitgeist to this whole thing. Everybody knows. They may not have done it or whatever, but these ideas are floating around now. And the more they float around, the more the consciousness rises. And in the end, everybody's going to make the right decision. When the young kids come along, they're going to make the right decision and go along with it. And that's what they're doing. They're just raising the zeitgeist, the consciousness, or people will talk about the veil, the thinning of the veil, where it's getting closer and closer, where people understand this kind of stuff. And that's what they're doing. They're slowly moving along. We've got forever to figure this thing out there. It's not like they're going to land and tell us what's going on. They just gradually release this stuff. And you see them going from one thing to another. So they come in wooden ships, then they come in the Foo Fighters, and then they come as green fireballs, then they come as Adamski crafts with the balls under them, then they come as flying saucers with windows, then the windows disappear, now they're coming as orbs, and you see this phenomenon. They just keep going. Let's do crop circles now. Okay, let's stop crop circles. Or the ground traces. Like, people don't realize this. Ground traces were big when I wrote my first book in 1975. Ground traces, they haven't been a ground trace. There has not been a UFO that landed and left tripod marks and burnt out the ground for 25 years. It doesn't happen. Same as the nuclears. The nuclear are interfering with our nuclear weapon silos. I said to Robert Hastings, hey, Robert, when was the last nuclear weapon thing? He said 2010. That's like 13 years ago. And before that, the ones that people are talking about are going back to the 1960s. These are phenomena that happen. They do it, and then they go on to something else, and they go on to something else. And they just keep changing the phenomena all the time to keep us interested. And what they're doing is they're raising the zeitgeist. They're raising the consciousness up where everybody realizes this is not a flesh and blood, a nuts and bolts world. This is something weird. It's getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And they're getting us ready to understand and moving us from one door to the next door to the next door. Open that door, take a look, open next door, take a look. And we keep moving along. And that's how this thing advances.
Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are talking about the phenomena. What is it all about? How does it affect us? Grant, you mentioned children. I even look at my own children. You know, they believe in ghosts. They're seeing things. They're seeing objects. They're seeing different opportunities. And they're kind of like shaking it off their shoulder. Like, yeah, it's all part of the game. It's like we're supposed to believe in this. We're supposed to not fight with this. Do you see children, you know, I'm saying between, the ages of 0 and 15 years old, being more leaders in this field in understanding what the phenomena actually is?
Yeah, that's what sort of thing happens. And whatever it is, it's like you even had go back to, when was it to be, the 1970s, near-death research on death. There was almost no discussion whatsoever about reincarnation. Now it's like a common discussion, but that was like an Eastern idea. But with the internet, which I'm writing a book called The Gifts. I'm actually editing it right now, called The Gifts, where I talk about things that we think were random, that they just came along. And you start looking at where computers came from, where the internet came from, and you realize this may have been given to us. That's because the first guys that invented the computer back in the 1960s, they called it the Intergalactic Communication Network. 1962. This is the guy that invented the mouse, that invented the idea of having a screen that had the typing on it, and you sat at a little station, you had your own little computer and stuff like that. That's what he called it, the Intergalactic Communication Network. And you see the phenomena doing these weird things where they give us, like the internet is basically like the Akashic record. So it's now, even with, I'm using ChatGPT, the AI, to edit my manuscript. And you see this whole thing where you can sort of have a chat with this thing. And it just sort of links into this stuff and pulls everything out of you can get anything you want. And we didn't have. And in our day, you had to go to the library and look stuff up. You had to figure stuff out. Now you just go to Google. I talk to my Google, my phone all the time. Hey, Google, ask this question or that question. But I did find there's a problem with AI. People talk about AI. And I can warn people, watch out for AI. Because AI, the internet AI, is actually not linked into the internet. And what they use is Wikipedia. And anybody who knows the whole thing about Wikipedia knows that it's run by skeptics. The skeptical gorillas or whatever they call themselves. And if you end up with like Rupert Sheldrake, a pseudoscience, and they'll use the word pseudoscience. And I was actually working on my manuscript. It's kind of funny. I'm working, and I mentioned Roswell in my manuscript, and I was editing it, and then I'm reading it over, and all of a sudden, Mogul balloon. What the hell's Mogul balloon? I never said that about the Mogul balloon, and that comes off Wikipedia. So they were starting to stick this in. So then I have to make when I do the prompt, I say, Do not use the word pseudoscience. Do not use the word mogul balloon. And you got to realize that they're pulling this stuff off of Wikipedia. And it's amazing stuff, but that's what the kids are able to grab onto now. And that's this idea of the Akashic record, the Akashic field, that everything is stored. And that's what the internet is. It's basically a lower level of the Akashic field where you can tap into anything, you can get any answer you want. And that's how the phenomena works in terms of channelers, that they're able to tap in, they're able to get a better signal on the internet than you and I get in there. And they can actually go in there and you ask them a question. That's how you used to do Desta. When I learned that Desta could channel, I would just say, hey, ask them this, ask them that, and just ask all these different questions. Or I had this chance, the beings in Great Britain wanted me to interview them. I said, oh, fantastic. Oh, sure. And I would ask them these questions and stuff like that. And that's the whole idea. The 40% of all UFO experiencers say at one point during their experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe. And near-death experience, 31% of all people who had near-death experiences say at one point in their experience, they knew the answer to everything, which means everything is known. The aliens give you access to this. They know everything. Whoever these beings are, they know everything. They don't need to check our emotions and, our graphs and explore like that. They know everything. All the answers are there. It's the ability to tap into the answer. And that was particularly enlightening to me when I started talking to people who claimed they knew the answer to everything in the universe, and it faded away as they came back in. All the answers are there, and we can tap into it. And it's just moving along as we gradually get closer and closer, higher vibration, and we get closer to the answers. And it's all about, it's not about winning or losing. It's about learning, and we keep coming back, and we keep running the play till we get it right.
3 minutes ago, Grant, before we got to go to break at the top of the hour, Grant Cameron is our guest tonight. Grant, when you talk about how fast this moves and where it's moving to and where it goes, where do you see the phenomena going? What's the end game here?
Well, it's a more spiritual type of thing, realizing that this is all going to be simulated universe. It's all going to be thought generated. The physical world is going to fade away. It's going to be like, for a lot of people, they're going to figure we're going back to Sunday school, and they're not going to want it. And I think that what I see is that the people are hanging on to this nuts and bolts thing, and the skeptics are always wrong. Left brain. If you look at the research that was done with left brain, this whole idea that there's a thing in the left brain called the left brain interpreter. So you get two pieces of information and something is unknown in between. And what the left brain does, it immediately will put an answer in there. And once it gets the answer, it will never back off that answer. It becomes the skeptic, and it will fight, and it will argue, and it will never back away, even when it's explained why it made a decision. And that's where we are, where it's a matter of funerals. Science advances one funeral at a time. And on a number of issues, I think we're only a couple thousand funerals away from these things breaking loose. The idea that this may not be ET, that it may be, as Jacques Vallée says, like looking at a screen instead of looking at the screen, which is not a moving movie screen. It's 24 frames being moved at 24 frames a second. There's still images being shown to us. Instead of looking at that, Jacques Vallée says, I'd like to turn around and look at that little light coming through the wall behind me. And when the movie's over, I'd like to get the key and go into the projection room and find out what's going on. That's where we're moving. I think we're getting closer and closer all the time. We're never going to get to the end. That's what we also got to remember. You're never going to see absolute reality. Reality is not seeable. You're just going to get closer and closer, and it's going to get more complex, more magnificent as you go along, as we move. And the universe is actually getting more intelligent, bigger, more complex as we move along. So that's what it's about. It's about learning and about this joy of discovering bigger and more magnificent things. And the universe just unfolds, and it'll never end, but we'll never get to the end of it. We'll never figure it out.
Well, that's the hard part is, as being human, we want answers. We want to know. We want to push things to the limit until we find those answers.
Yeah. We live in a biblical type world where we believe in the end of the world. I mean, we got one more piece, one more piece, and then Jesus is going to come back, and it's all going to be over, and the world's going to end, and all. We believe this kind of world. That's what we've been brought up to believe. And in the end, there is no time, there's no space, and it's all a loop, and it just feeds into itself, and it just gets bigger and bigger and more complex as we go along. And there is no end time. And even if we do destroy the world, we come back somewhere else. You keep running the play till you get it right. It doesn't really matter whether we destroy the world. People get upset when I say that, but that's true. I mean, it doesn't really matter what happens and what we do. It's all about lessons. And when you do things that are stupid, your lessons get tougher and tougher and tougher, and the temperature gets warmer and things happen. And it's just different lessons. You get easier lessons or harder lessons depending upon what you input into the system.
Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're 1 hour down, 1 hour to go here on the Mighty SOR as the legendary Grant Cameron, author and researcher, joins us tonight to talk about the phenomena, and eventually we will get to some UFOs. Not his Winnipeg Jets, though. Might be a tough season for them. Not my Oilers, though. Yes, the hockey banter starts, and we only got 8 months to go until we see the finish. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this with Grant Cameron. All right, boss, we got 6 minutes. 6 minutes.
Jets are tied for first place right now, man. What are you talking about? That's the whole thing about reincarnation. Hockey's like reincarnation.
Oh, hell.
You get to start over and over again. You start in first place again every year.
Every year. Yep. You're playing for a draft pick. That's all I'm saying. And hopefully it's a top 10.
That's the only thing we can get is draft picks. Otherwise, nobody wants to stay here. We got to get the draft picks who have no choice but to come here. Otherwise, nobody wants to come here. That's our big problem. We couldn't trade Hellebuck and Scheifele because they basically nobody wanted them. We were the only ones that could take them.
Grant, I'm going to put you in the green room. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, have a good one.
Be right back, people. Hey, Parker, how you doing? Dude, thank you for that great super chat. Very much appreciate the love, man. Who else has joined us? Let's get Grant back in here.
Bowling. You gotta go bowling. Do you have bowling alleys there?
We have a 5-pin. We have a 5-pin.
Yeah,
that's how old school we are.
Well, that's the thing. America's into bowling. Canada, it's hockey. I don't think maybe we have one 10-pin lane left. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. Major Lee, how you doing? TMI, how you doing? Guero, how you doing? Welcome to SOR chat. If you have questions for Grant, put them in capital letters. I will try and get to them. And look at this guy. Look at this joker. We have too many Canadians on this show already. All right. Big thank you, Simon, Big Dog, Mama Catherine, Human Carl, Lori, Pam, Cat Chaser, and Dude for the incredible super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much. Oh, hey, Clam. How you doing, buddy? And you can shop at our store on our website, spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag like other people do. We got nice swag. Go pick some up today. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here comes hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Please join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing I want, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bagari. Bagari is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here we go, another fast hour coming up with Grant Cameron, author, researcher. We are talking about the phenomena. What is it? What's it all about? Grant, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Before we get to some UFO chatter, I want to ask you, with everything you've learned about the phenomena that it just is, and that's probably the easiest way to put it, does that mean, or have you concluded that we are in some sort of simulation or matrix that we are living in?
That's where we're headed. That's where I think all the arrows are pointed towards, that kind of world, whatever that is. People where I disagree with people, they sort of make it look like a computer and somebody's running the computer. I don't think that's the thing. It's this idea that it's always been alive. It's this singularity that's conscious, alive, and everything's connected inside of it. That's where we're headed, in that direction. It's away from the nuts and bolts thing. And that's where I bring up the whole idea about the aliens, that when I'm writing this book, when you start looking at the aliens, it really starts to get strange. I mean, as David Jacobs points out, you get the aliens who do this mind thing where they look in the eyes and they're like 1 inch away from your face. And he asked them all, could you sense, was the alien breathing? They said, no, the alien wasn't breathing. The alien ain't breathing. We got a problem here. Something's going on. And nobody's seen the alien's chest going up and down. The aliens have their skin is without flaws. It's like rubberized. There's no wrinkles in the skin, and it doesn't eat, it doesn't drink, it doesn't sleep, and it doesn't have any. I've always pointed this out. It doesn't have any clothes on, and doesn't have any sex organs. Doesn't have. If you look at the alien autopsy video, they seem to get it right. Doesn't have any nipples. Doesn't have any sex organs. Doesn't have a belly button. and you start wondering, like, what are we dealing with? And it never gets any older, and it's in a past lifetime. And that's when this whole nuts and bolts thing starts to collapse, and you start wondering, what are we really dealing with? Or even the abduction phenomena, where there is an event taking place, but when you start looking very closely at the people who are having the events, you start to see Mike Clellan says, I'm out of my body. I'm floating above the craft, and now I'm in the craft, and I slip into this little alien, like a suit, a gray suit, and I slip into the suit, and suddenly I'm a gray alien. And you get Betty Andreasen talks about coming back to her trailer after, and there were 6 books written on her abduction experiences, and she comes back and she says, I go into the bedroom and I'm sitting on the side of the bed. And Ron Johnson, who I've interviewed numerous times, said all the time, out-of-body experience. The guy that runs MUFON for Japan, the 22 experiences with the Greys in 2022, he said every single one of them was out-of-body experience. He had learned how to do it, interact with the beings. And that's the thing, this whole idea that it's not what you think it is. There's an abduction event taking place, but that it starts to explain how can you go through windows and walls, because it's not a physical event. There's a physical thing on the other end where you can have bodies, marks on the body and all these kind of things. But in terms of the event, you start wondering, what are we really doing here, and what's really going on? Or somebody asked a question about the conscious craft. I wrote the book called Alien Sky Pilots, and I look at this whole thing of these 36 people that came to me, just sort of all appeared out of nowhere, all telling me these stories about flying the craft. And the first woman that came to me, I thought she was absolutely insane. Like, you flew the craft? Come on. It's like, yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever. You're 75 years old. Like, why would they let you fly the craft? She says, well, it's flown with consciousness. And when she said that, I went, what? Because I had this consciousness download. And that's why they put me into connection with this woman. And that's when you start seeing this whole idea that people on board the craft start to describe stuff that does not happen in the physical world. It is not the physical world. Otherwise, it still wouldn't be happening. What they'll say is, for example, they'll go on the craft and they'll say, I could see him 360 degrees. That's out-of-body experience. Anybody who's in an out-of-body experience will say, I can see in 360 degrees. That makes no sense. If you're going to make up a story about being on a craft and being abducted, you're not going to say, I could see in 360 degrees. Chris Bledsoe, piles of them, all tell the story. Terry Lovelace tell the story. We saw the craft is 30 feet on the outside. They went inside the craft, and it was like the size of a football stadium on the inside. And that, there's no way that's not the physical world. That starts to give you the indication that something really weird is going on, and it's not the physical world that your mom and dad grew up in. And you have the idea that there's telepathy, that the alien's mouth doesn't move, and that everything's happening by telepathy. And then the biggest thing is, when people talk about the craft, they say the craft is alive, it's conscious, and that what you do is you put your hand on a panel or on a ball, and you become one with the craft. You touch the craft, you interact with the craft, and you become one with the craft. And whatever you think is what the craft does. And people will describe this over and over again. The being will say to you, to like they said to Ron Johnson, where would you like to go, Ron? Ron says, I'd like to see the Milky Way from a distance. They said, okay, Ron, it's within you. Go within yourself. As soon as you can imagine it, we'll go there. And that's the whole key. It's within yourself. Piles of people all told the same story. The aliens say it's within you. And so what are they doing? It's the same thing as remote viewing. Is the remote viewer actually going somewhere? You say, well, here's your target, 67342, whatever. And the guy says, hang on, I'm flying there. I'll be there in a minute. No, it's like, boom, they're at the target instantaneously. They're not going anywhere. They're going within themselves. The same as out-of-body experience will tell you. They go within themselves. And this is what's happening. We're going within ourselves. Or the analogy that would destroy the whole physical universe. We say, oh, it's the brain, and the consciousness is in the brain, and we're looking out of these little eyes, and we're seeing the world around us. And that's not what's happening, because anybody who's had a near-death experience will float away, and they look back at their body and they see their head, they see the body. And so the question is the consciousness in the brain? No, it's not, because I'm floating up here and the head is down there. The head is in the consciousness. The body is in the consciousness. And that person can float to the window and look out at the universe. And that universe will be inside the consciousness. Everything is inside consciousness. Or as Deepak Chopra said, everything is an activity inside consciousness. That's this whole thing of the simulated universe idea. That's where we're headed. And you see more and more physicists going in that direction now, that it's not going to be the physical world that we think it is. It's this really weird thing. I was even reading an article today that just came out about top scientists, and the one guy who's some sort of expert said 50-50 chance, he's given it now, that it's a simulated universe. But they want to make it like a computer, that there's some god or there's some programmer or alien, and you see this thing, the aliens invented the whole thing. Well, who invented the aliens? They always have to go back. Who invented that? Where did the start come from? And it's always been, it will always be. But it's going to be this idea that you get on board the ship. And that's why it's so important to listen to the experiencers, or even the ones on the ground. Hal Puthoff talked about the fact that that was the thing that interested him the most. How can the craft be bigger on the inside than it is outside? And there was actually Len Stringfield, who did the crash saucers back in the 60s and 70s. He gave the first crash saucer lecture in 1978 in Dayton, Ohio, and had the death threat. Long before Roswell came up. Roswell didn't come up until 1980. And he talked about a craft, a description back in the 1970s of a guy that was brought in to film the panels inside the craft. And he's brought into a hangar in California, and the craft was in a netting hanging from a crane. And he said he went inside, and he said the craft was bigger on the inside than it was outside. That was on the ground. This is a crash saucer. And so when you get that kind of stuff, you realize that this is not the world you think it is. It's much more complex, much more in depth. And that's when you get the Wilson leak document. You start seeing these stuff in there that starts to make sense. At the end of the Wilson leak document, it says, we have a craft and we think it'll fly. And that's always been a rumor. Len Stringfield talked about that. Lots of people have talked about that we have a craft that's completely intact, completely nothing wrong with the craft at all. We were given it, or whatever happened. And the idea is that the craft, they can't fly it. They say, so we got a craft, we think it'll fly, because you need a consciousness interface. You need a consciousness to turn the thing on. The craft is alive. And that's when you look at artificial intelligence. Then you're looking at artificial intelligence down the road. The craft is alive, it's conscious. People actually give it names, and you get this world that's completely different than the world of simple ETs. You're making a wrong turn and ending up running into the earth and stuff like that. That's fading away, and I think it's only good for maybe another 15 or 20 years. And I don't think anyone will believe that anymore. We're just sort of hanging on, and that's when you start to get looking at the statements made from NASA and from the government and all these different people when they say yes, UFOs are real, but we have no evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. They may actually be telling the truth. That's the truth. The whole thing is the word extraterrestrial. We have this impression of these ETs, physical ETs, biological beings. But the more, when you start looking, especially when you look at the beings and you start looking at clear descriptions of the beings, none of them seem to be biological. It's something else. They're appearing to be biological, the same as before 1947. Nobody talked about aliens and UFOs and stuff like that. It was all elves and fairies and stuff like that. And they change as we go. So we get into the space age, and they started off as being from Mars and Venus. So anybody who says it's extraterrestrial, I say, okay, so then 1950s, they said they were from Mars and Venus. The ones the Canadian government dealt with in 1950, Wilbert Smith, the guy that ran the Canadian government program, and the CIA and defense and the Navy intelligence in the United States were all dealing with a being by the name of Alpha. And Alpha said he came from Uranus, and that there was 500 million people on Uranus. And Uranus is like 320 degrees below. And so this is the whole thing. Are they actually from Mars and Venus? And you say, well, no, I don't believe that. And then it went to 1960, and they showed the star map to Betty Hill. And then suddenly it all changed. Oh, it's Zeta Reticuli. Somebody came up with Zeta Reticuli. And suddenly they're from Zeta Reticuli and from the Pleiades and from Andromeda and stuff like that. And then in 1963, we started talking about multidimensional stuff in science fiction. And then suddenly now they're from the fifth and the sixth and the ninth and the 12th dimension. And they're going to be whatever we want them to be. That's what the being said to me when I said, are you extraterrestrial? And they said, would you like us to be extraterrestrial? We could be extraterrestrial if you want. We could even take you to our planet. But no, we're not extraterrestrial. We've always been here. You're the visitor. And this is the whole idea of the singularity. It may be no time, no space. It's just a simple singularity. It's a thought. Call it God, whatever you want. And that it's all here. It's all now. And there is no out there. It's all within ourselves. And it's all a mind. It's all mind stuff. It's all simulated universe, or whatever you want to call it.
Grant, the way the UFO cycle is going right now, we're seeing this whole political side that has taken over. And with that, we've also seen a lot of news come out where it sounds really fictitious at times. Even Ross Coulthard coming out and saying he knows where there is this giant UFO, that there has been a building built over top of it because they
Yeah.
couldn't move it. Have you ever heard of that? And
Oh,
and
yeah.
do you know where that is? Because he's not giving it up.
Well, yeah, these are stories that have been told. That's what I'm saying. I'm doing a podcast. My podcast is the Paranormal UFO Consciousness podcast. I do a thing on Len Stringfield. Len Stringfield was talking about this back many, many years ago. John Lear talked about the one that they buried the one. These are stories are old. And the fact of the matter is that even if there is crash, so they come to the core story. So Hal Puthoff, Jacques Vallée, and Kit Green were three of the top guys. These are the guys that got the briefings. These are the guys that have the top secret SCI clearances since like 1969, 1972. These are guys that have got all the briefings, have been around, have got all the money from Bigelow, have interacted with all the top people and stuff like that. And they, in the 1980s, they came up with what's called the core story. And they said, what do we know for sure? We know we're being visited by something. They were at the Denny's restaurant, and they've confirmed the story is true. They were at the Denny's restaurant, and they said, what do we know for sure? There's lots of garbage floating around. We know, number one, that we're being interacted by some sort of intelligence. Number two, we have crash hardware. And number three, we ain't able to back engineer it. We're not doing very well back engineering. And Eric Davis actually agreed with that as well. When he briefed the Congress people, that's what he said for years, that we've got the stuff and we stopped it in 1989. We couldn't back engineer the stuff, and we put it on a shelf, and every 7 or 8 years we take it off the shelf and we revisit the thing that we can't get anywhere. But the thing is, even if we've got crash saucers and we've got bodies, that doesn't mean it's extraterrestrial. It still is the old idea. It's like, where did it come from? Because we can go back to mediums in the turn of the century. Stanford University, the Leland Stanford, who started Stanford University, his brother and him, they were all into seances and stuff like that. And his brother was dealing with seances in Australia, and he had a turtle that appeared in one of the seances, a live turtle, and he kept this turtle in his garden. And then he donated a bunch of money to Stanford University for paranormal research. And of course, there's no paranormal research, so they used to finance the psychology department for many years at Stanford University. All the money was supposed to go for paranormal research. And the turtle shell is in a port collection. So I wrote a book called Weird on ports and manifestations, things that appear out of nowhere. Coins and turtles and all these kind of things all over the place, in all the phenomena, whether it's ghosts, whether it's psychics, or whether it's UFOs. They all have these port phenomena. It's like Skinwalker Ranch was all port phenomena, cattle disappearing and bulls being put inside trailers and stuff like that. So when you have this port technology, you get the thing where if they can make a turtle appear, they can make an alien appear. It doesn't mean it's from extraterrestrial. It may be like an apport. They can, if they can make a turtle, they can make an alien, and they can make this stuff appear. Same as a coin. So they make a coin appear, they can make a flying saucer appear, which is the whole thing. When you start looking deeply into this thing, it starts to fall apart. People are just they're sort of closing their eyes and their ears, and they don't want to hear certain things. So it's like the metal stuff. When I heard the metal stuff, it was like, come on already. The thing flies across the galaxy. I mean, from like 1 trillion galaxies away, and it flies here, and then little pieces start to fall off the craft. Come on, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They're all like the size of your thumb. These little pieces, they're falling off, and they're coming out of the sky and stuff like that. And people are looking at them, and it's the theory of wow. They want you to go, wow, what the heck is this metal? And then you find that the isotopes are all messed up, and you go, oh, this is pretty weird. And they get you all excited, and you're moving along. And so these apport things, they can make it appear whatever they want. Just because we've got crafts and bodies, people say we've got bodies and crafts. Yeah, we may have bodies and crafts, but it still may be from here. It may be some phenomena that's able to produce these things. Because when you look at the phenomena, when you look at the beings, even the alien autopsy in the 1995 thing, it has no sex organs, it has no belly button, it has no nipples. And how did they get that right? Now I'm bringing this up. Is that when you start asking people these sort of things, or they say they got clothes, but the clothes are so thin, it's like it's part of their skin and stuff like that. And you start seeing these really weird phenomena. So yeah, the crash saucer stuff, all this has been around forever. All these stories about Area 51, and to move the stuff from Hangar 18 to Area 51. And Knapp has the story about the woman who was the stenographer who was keeping notes as they were talking about moving this stuff to Area 51. And then they come and threaten her and stuff like that. So they've got all this material, but they may have piles and piles and warehouses full of this stuff, but they can't do anything with it because they can't turn it on. It needs a consciousness interface. And number two, they don't know where it's from. They know it's not us. We didn't build it. But the fact that it's ET is, I think, what's throwing people off. Is it's got to be from extraterrestrials, because we believe in this world, that there's a world out there. And John Wheeler said there is no out there. It's this idea that it may be all here and now, and that's how they can move in and out. Or you even see UFOs. I mean, they pop in, they pop out. And that was apparently one of the things that the Defense Intelligence was really interested in, was the portals. The portals where you had the object where it's dark, and then you have this portal, and you can see through the portal, and it's sunshine on the inside of the portal. And that's when I remember Sid Goldberg told me the story at Gaia TV. He was interviewing John Alexander, who was Bigelow's big guy at Skinwalker Ranch. And he said he was talking to John as they finished the interview, and they were out in the parking lot. And he said to John, he's asking about sightings. And John got upset and he said, "It's not about the sightings. It's about the portals." And he gets in his car and drives away. And I said, "You actually said that?" He said that because I know every time I looked at portals, it went somewhere. And it appears that the government may have some sort of mind thing that they can move stuff around from here to there. The portal thing they may have figured out. And that's this whole idea. That's how they're moving in and out. They're moving out in and out through these portals that they're coming from some sort of inside or wherever. And they're not coming from out there, not flying across the universe. It's all here. It's all now. And that's why the portals are so important, and why they went to Skinwalker Ranch, because they had portals there. And I tell the stories of piles of portal stories, and I've interviewed the people. I interviewed 2014, 7 people inside a portal, 2015, 8 people inside the portal. And I interviewed 3 of the 9 people in 2020 who were in a portal, who were levitated, and they were levitated off the ground. And I talked to 3 of those witnesses. I've got them on camera, and they talked about more beings than there were trees in the forest. This was at Mount Shasta. More beings than there was trees in the forest surrounded them, and they were all oming. And I asked them, how long did the event take place? They said they have no idea. They were levitated into the air. This was the most amazing thing. And these are people who went on camera and told me this story. The portal thing is real. There's something to the portal thing. And that's why I say that it's not going to be extraterrestrial. It's going to be some really weird sort of thing where it's here now. It's a singularity. It's all one thing. It's all conscious, alive, and it's all here. No time and space. That's where we're headed.
Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got 2 minutes, Grant, before we got to go to break. Let's get to an audience question here. Let's go to Gizmo. Grant, do you believe all of these craft are conscious driven?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the key is that when you talk to the witnesses who've been on board the craft, and you start asking these questions, you start to see these similarities that people will say the craft was alive, it was conscious. When I touched it, I became one with the craft, and whatever I thought is what the craft thought. I could actually communicate with the craft. There's actually Kathy Martin's assistant, Denise Stoner, talks about being on the craft, and she's talking to the engine in this craft, and this engine's talking to her. And she said she felt so bad. It was interacting with all the other crafts around the universe that there was talking. And she said, I feel sorry for you. And he said, this is my job. Don't feel sorry for me. It was the most bizarre thing. And this is a story that goes back probably 20 or 25 years. She's the one that started. She's in the book. And I talk about all these different people. And that's basically what you get the craft is alive. It's conscious. And everything's alive. Everything's conscious. It's this idea that we have this idea that we're conscious, we're alive, and everything else is not. I mean, if you go back to the hydrogen atom, how does the electron know what to do inside a hydrogen atom? I mean, what did it learn? Is that evolution? I mean, everything is conscious at some level. It's all conscious, it's all alive, and it's all one thing. And anybody who's done ayahuasca, who has a psilocybin experience and stuff like that, they come out of it and they say everything. Oh, man, I couldn't believe it. Everything is alive, conscious, and one. That's the key. And they've broken through that sort of shield. And when you get on the other side and you get that information, that's what you learn. Everything's alive. Everything's conscious. Everything's one thing. It's all connected. And it's a verb. There's no nouns. It's all verb.
Grant Cameron, we got him till the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. And when we return with Grant, We're going to ask him point blank, are there jump rooms? Can we go from place to place, from Earth to the moon to Mars?
A good story, I'll tell you.
We're going to look into jump rooms next with the legendary Grant Cameron on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back. All right, we're clear. Good times, little Granty Cameron. Good times.
Good times.
By the way, Connor Bedard got 1 point in his debut.
The first game? Did they play the first game already?
Pittsburgh versus Chicago. Nice face-off between Sid the Kid and Connor Bedard.
There you go. Yeah, he's doing pretty well. I watched one of the games he played. He looks like he's about 13 years old though. Jeez, it's like
I know.
You've heard the story? He's never been to a fast food restaurant. He's never eaten fast food.
Never eaten a McDonald's in his life.
Yeah, that's unreal. Yeah. Yeah, he's got a shooting board. My kid had a shooting board. I point that out. And same was what's his name? Your buddy there.
Who?
And Edmonton. They with the shooting boards. My kid had the shooting.
Connor McDavid, yeah.
Yeah, they got the shooting boards. My kid had a shooting board. I remember he was at 9 years old. My kid could slap shot a puck from center ice and put it over the back glass at 9 years old. But then he couldn't keep it down. It was like every time he would shoot, he'd hit the goalie in the head, or he would shoot it over the back glass, or whatever. And I said, "Get it down, get it down." I guess he gets so obsessed with this, the ability to shoot. But at 9 years old, that's you see, like these guys, the drills they use and the skills and the stuff. It's almost like the UFO thing. They've learned so many skills and so many tricks and stuff like that. The stuff they're doing now. I mean, can you imagine if Edmonton went up against the Canadians from the 1960s, the score would be like 300-0. It was like unbelievable. Those guys could barely skate. And you see the same development, that we're moving at an incredible pace and learning and abilities and speed and stuff like that. Same things happen in the UFO community. It's getting more elaborate and more magnificent all the time.
Are you a grandpa yet?
December the 18th, apparently. Till then, I've got my Norm. I go down and Norm the dog. I always say is my one grandkid. So we don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl, but I think it's going to be a girl. But the new generation, that's the thing. My mother dies, and I told my son, the new generation moves on. It just develops and it rotates, and that's the way it works.
Here's my little guy.
I can't really see. I got to get my glasses on here. There you go. Holy cow. Is that whereabouts? Vancouver?
He's in Penticton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's in Penticton, and I miss him.
Is that the only one you got?
That's the only one I got.
Well,
but the main thing is he's got his stick, he's got his skates, and
is your boy playing?
Yeah, he's last year of U11, okay. And it's funny because I took him out for they don't do tryouts here. There's not enough kids for tryouts here, but I took him out, and he wasn't sure if he was going to play this year, but I was like, come on, no, you're playing. And he's like, okay, Dad. Well, he went out there and he has been busting his ass.
There you go.
Every ice time. And he's gone from the back of the pack in skating to, when they do their skating drills, he's usually between 1 and 6 now. Like he just, and the first practice he had, or first couple practices he had, I just went to him and said, who the hell are you? Right? Like, where did you come from? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you didn't skate like that last year. Where is this coming from? He's like, Dad, you threatened to take away my iPad if I didn't try hard.
Yeah. 11's a good year. I mean, that was a funny story. My kid played for Winnipeg Junior Jets at 11, and we were playing in Ontario. and Ontario, they could, or was it 11 to 12? Yeah, 11, 12. They could body check at 11 years old. So they decided that they're going to shut down the Winnipeg Junior Jets. They were going to, hit them, forecheck and hit them. And we told the kids, you got to watch out. These guys have been body checking for a year. They can body check in here and they're going to hit you. They're going to try to slow you down. And we figured the kids would all panic and they went, can we hit them too? And then the coach said, yeah. Oh God, they're all excited. It's like but the thing was they just destroyed them because the kids were so good on their skates at a young age that the kids that score, the kids can skate. My kid went to power skating, but it was so funny. 11 years old. Can we body check them too? It's like, yeah, you can body check them. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah, I got to get my boy into power skating. Thank you tonight to Cat Chaser with a hat trick, Dutch Hank, T-Bone, Major Lee, and Dude, and Pam, Lori, Simon, Big Dog, Mama Catherine, and Human Carl for the super chats. Here we go with the next one, everyone. Past the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. All right, let's go. One more half hour with Grant Cameron before we have to say goodnight to him. Grant, you can find all of his books on Amazon. Grant, we're going to talk about jump rooms here. Now, we first heard of jump rooms about almost 20 years ago now, with Andrew Bashago and his stories. Why he never became president, I don't know. But nonetheless, jump rooms have been on our minds, and you have information that this may not be that far-fetched.
Yeah, I actually had a breakfast one time with Andy. I mean, he was one of the smartest guys I've ever met. I had heard the story. I thought it was a nutty story. I had breakfast with him and I thought, wow, he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life. He made a lot of sense when he was talking. But anyway, so the story goes to the story you want to hear is I'm in a cabin in Pennsylvania, and the cabin is owned by Mark Leon, who's a big business guy out of New Jersey. Chris Bledsoe is there, and my friend Mark Olson, who's a big business guy here in Winnipeg, was there. I was the only guy who didn't have any money. Me and Peter Robbins was there. He didn't have any money either, but we were there, and suddenly I hear that Tim Taylor is there from NASA, and he's the guy if you read the book American Cosmic, he's Tyler D. And I didn't really know who he was at that time. That's why I used his name. There was no secrecy. It was not like you got to call him Tyler D. I mean, he was Tim Taylor. And my friend Mark had taken him to what's called the gifting field. And Tim Taylor talks about this fact that the gifting field, he makes this statement. Do you think they fly across the galaxy and then crash? Come on, they're giving us this stuff. They're dropping it. And they call it the gifting field. And he took Dan Pasolka there, and he took Gary Nolan there. They were blindfolded. He took them to this field. Well, it was actually Mark Olson who showed Tim Taylor where the field was in New Mexico. And so anyway, we're there, and I had the download experience. This is 2013, and Chris Bledsoe is got the contract with Warner Brothers. He's on the third draft of this contract, and he's turned it down twice. Warner Brothers has given him a thing, but Warner Brothers won't give him control at the end of the movie. So he's saying, nope, turn it down. So now he's got it again, and they were talking about it's going to be bigger than the Passion of the Christ. $80 million they're going to put into it, and they had offered him, I think, $1.5 million to sign the contract, 2% of gross, which would have been $8 million, and 4% of royalties. And I remember these big business guys are saying to Chris, No, Chris, don't take the royalties. It's $20 for a pencil. You're not going to make no royalties. You're not going to get nothing. Take the money up front. So they're advising him. And all Chris is interested in is he's not going to sign it unless he gets control of the end of the movie. It's going to be called the message. It was the message that was given to him to give to the world. And he's not going to, like Tom DeLonge got a hold of it and he offered him like huge money. And but Tom DeLonge wanted to put reptilians at the end. So anyway, we're at this thing and they're advising Chris on how to sign this contract and stuff. And it's going back to the lawyer for the third time. And I guess he never did get control of it because the Warner Brothers thing never came off. And Julia Roberts was going to play Diane Pasulka, and Mel Gibson was going to play Chris Bledsoe. And that's why I said, well, I'm in the movie. Who's going to play me? And he said, well, I don't know who's going to play. But anyway, so they're having this discussion. And then suddenly I have this conversation with Tim Taylor. And Tim introduced me to a girl by the name of Connie. And on my Paranormal UFO Consciousness podcast today, I actually posted the interview with Connie. He actually introduced me to this one. And this is where I learned this idea that you have this high-level NASA guy who gets downloads and he's got 40 patents and they're all coming from the beings. And he talks about how he gets in contact with the beings and they give him all this sort of stuff. He actually introduced me. He introduced me to two women. The first woman didn't answer the phone. And then the second one was Connie, and she lived in Steinbach, Manitoba, which is just outside Winnipeg. Now she lives in Florida. And he said, you might live somewhere near you. I said, yeah, it's like 30 miles away. So he put me in contact with her, and I've been in contact with her ever since, and he was following her. And that's what you do. So what he was doing is he was going to Connie and these other experiencers, and he gave them little things to fill out. Your premonitions, all your premonitions, your events and stuff. And they were keeping track of all this stuff for him. And he was following these experiences, which is what you do. So anyway, we were sitting there and he talked about his download experience. So he said he was famous for this company that he sold on NASDAQ for $100 million, according to the rumor. One of the things that was part of that company was this invention that he got. And it's a medical invention, and he got it from whoever. He said, I'll tell you what, Grant, because we were talking about downloads. He said, I'll tell you what, that morning I got that idea in my head we made the patent. He said, the last thing I remember the night before was a hooded figure standing at the end of the bed. I said, really? It was a hooded figure standing at the bed? He said, yeah. I said, could you see its face? He said, no, I couldn't see its face. So I said, oh, you should go to Yvonne Smith, because he used to go to Florida and he used to go to LA, and he worked with children who had cancer in the operation room because he's had all this equipment. And so I said, well, you go to LA, go to Yvonne Smith and get regressed. I don't know if he ever did get regressed to find out what he was dealing with. But anyway, we're talking about the download. And then he shows me a cell phone. He's got the cell phone. He shows me the cell phone. And he says, so what do you think of this? And he shows me these two guys. It's a painting. And these two guys are flying through space, and they're just like, propped out. And the one guy, they look like they're in pajamas. And the one guy's older than the other guy, and they're flying through space. And I go, I don't know, Tim, I have no idea. And then he shows me these, all these balls, this painting with all these balls. There's big balls going into the middle, and these balls get smaller and smaller, like they're going down this tunnel. And he said, what do you think of this? I said, I don't know. And then he shows me this three pictures of this eclipse as the eclipse is taking place. And I go, I don't know, Tim, I have no idea. And then he shows me this. He says, here, look on the parkade. He says, it was a 56 or 57 Chev. He said, in the back seat, he says, take a look in the back seat here. See that postcard? And he's got this picture, and you can sort of see the postcard in the back seat. And he said, you know what it says on the postcard? And it's a guy writing to his girlfriend or vice versa or whatever. And she's in France or he's in France or something. And it was something about, oh, I wish I could travel through time and space to be with you. And I said, that's what I said? And he said, yeah. And then I stopped. I don't know, Tim. I don't know what you're showing me these photos. I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. And he says, you know where this is? I said, no, where is it? And he said, it's the Hughes facility outside of LAX. And I go, still don't know what you're talking about, Tim. I have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said, well, that's where the jump room was supposed to be. And I go, really? Let's see those photographs again. Then he shows me the photographs. He shows me his photographs, and he says, the one with the two guys flying through space. He says, you know where that one is? And I said, no, where is it? He said, it's right outside the elevator. I said, really? So the next time I went to LA, I couldn't wait. I get off the plane, man. I didn't even go into the hotel, nothing. I just got on the bus, man. And off we went to, it's 999 Sepulveda Avenue in LA, outside of LAX. And there it is. And I went in there, and he says, watch out. There's a security guard. Make sure he doesn't see you if you're going to, because I'm going to go photograph these paintings. And so I went in, and luckily it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and this guy was letting people in into the building. He was holding the door open. So I'm sitting there, I'm photographing all these things. And that's what it basically came down to. So people have asked me, did he say it was a jump room? And I said, I don't know if he said it was a jump room. He just said, you know where this is? And I said, no. And it was the implication I got was, this is in the building where they said the jump room was at 99 Sepulveda Avenue. So I actually contacted Andy, and there's two buildings. So the car on the parkade wasn't there, up on the top of the parkade. But the back building, I said to Andy, because I went in the back building, I want to see if there's elevators in there. And because there's two big, like they've been converted into office buildings. So I said to Andy, I said, were you when you were a kid and you were in these jump room things, were you in the front building or the back building? He said, I was a young kid. I don't remember if it was the front building or the back building, but that's the story. So he basically got me very interested. And people asked me, did he actually say it was a jump room? And I said, no, I don't really know. It was just like, you know where that photo, you know where this painting is? He said, it's outside the elevator. And I said, really? And the whole story is that they go in the elevator, they go up to the 5th floor, and Obama and all the boys, and they all go to Mars. So that was the whole thing with the jump room, that it seemed to indicate there was a story. And then the other thing that backed it up, which is pretty hard evidence, was I've always followed around Ron Pandolfi for many, many years, decades. And Ron Pandolfi puts this video of himself and his wife and Dan Smith and Kevin Albert and all these guys, and they're going through the Panama Canal. They're on a cruise going through the Panama Canal, and it's very bad audio, and they're in the restaurant or whatever. And Ron's wife, Leah, says, they're having a discussion. She says, so Footman, he's the Footman. She's the princess, and he's her Footman. They have all these code names and stuff. Hey, Footman, so what do you say? And then Ron, this is on camera, and Ron says, people have always wondered what it's like to go into the next world. The next time John, and he looks over at John, and this John Sillison guy is sitting beside him, who Ron went to university with in California. He said, next time John goes to the desert, a number of us here will go into the next world and come back again. And I went, thank you, Jesus. And I grabbed this off the video, and I grabbed it. And he was furious when Bruce Maccabee showed it to me. He says, look at Cameron. Did you actually say this? And he says, that Cameron's a thief, man. That was on my, and I was like, well, you put it on YouTube, man. I grabbed it. So he basically says, people have always wondered what it's like to go into the next world. The next time John goes to the desert, there's always this rumored story that they had this portal thing in the desert. And I said to Dan had, the story was that Dan had turned it down 3 times. He had chickened out and going through this portal. And Leah actually had a YouTube video on portals. And then I said, hey, Dan, you said you were going to go to the portal and you chickened out 3 times. He said, no, I don't think that's really true. And then Aaliyah says, Ron's wife says, yeah, that is true. And I went, holy shit. It's like the story was that they had this thing in the desert, this portal thing, and that Ron was going to take these people into the portal and they're going to go. And the story that I had heard, for years, I was trying to get all the material. And I actually asked somebody who was pretty close. I said, hey, I don't know if I'm going to follow this portal thing. This is kind of nonsense. I'm getting tired of the games and stuff like that. Do you think I should hang around? And there was this long pause, and the guy says, yeah, I should probably hang around. And then last year he confirmed it. He says, it's true. The whole story is true. You were interested. Should you hang around? The story is true. The portal thing is true. So the portal, I believe, is true. They have some sort of technology. They've discovered this kind of stuff. And that goes to the whole idea that it's not extraterrestrial, that it's some sort of weird thing. It's all here. It's all now. It's this portal thing that we're popping into dimensions or whatever you want to call it. But it's, every time I went to portals, it went somewhere. Every time I went to anti-gravity, it didn't go anywhere.
So do you think we have that ability?
Yeah.
Have we got that technology?
Yeah. I believe if we have anything, I don't believe we really have a lot of technology. I think that a lot of the stuff, people are just making up games. It's like we won the Vietnam War and we, won the Afghan War and stuff like that. We make all sorts of garbage up. It's like military bravado. We don't have anything. I mean, if we had the technology that people say we've got, I mean, do you think that we're still lobbing missiles and mortar shells at each other in Ukraine? Where's the technology? Where's the super technology? Where was the super technology for the Israelis when they got, ambushed on the weekend? We don't seem to have all this technology. But the portal thing, I mean, that every time I went somewhere, I even talked when I had the one with the portal thing with these 9 witnesses that got levitated in 2020. And I went to Kevin Albert, who's sort of working with Ron Pandolfi. I said, hey, Kevin, okay, I got another story about portals. And he had said he'd been through a portal and he was going to take us to a portal in Napa Valley. He lived in Napa Valley, went through a portal. He described what it looked like and stuff like that. And so I said, okay, Kevin, I said, I got another story about a portal. I said, don't you think it's time that you tell me what the CIA actually knows about portals? He said, okay, I'll make you a deal. You get these 9 people. We're going to do a show. They always want to do a show. They're always trying to get me to do a show in Hollywood. And I said, I'm not going to sit in front of camera. I'm not going to sit in front of I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I'll do all the research, whatever, for nothing. I'm not going to sit in front of the camera. I'm not going to be a talking head. And then he said, okay, you get these people, and we're going to do a show in Hollywood on it. And then I'll tell you what the CIA knows. And then, of course, the word got back to all these Latino people that Cameron's got the CIA. It's like they all just scattered. Like nobody would talk to me again. It's like they got a warning from somebody who knew pretty closely that Grant's got the CIA. Don't get involved with these people. Don't talk. And so they all disappeared. But these 9 people are still around. We sort of know who they are, and 3 of them are on camera. I've got them on camera telling this story, and there's no doubt when you hear these people telling the story that they didn't want to talk because they're Latino. They don't want to be the center of the story. They don't want to look, proud and stuff like that. But when they got going, man, they were all fighting to talk and tell the story. And when the guy said, the biggest thing was when Sinead Wellahan was doing the interview with me, she said, so how many beings were there? And the guy says, there was as many beings as there was trees in the forest. I said, holy cow. It's like hundreds of beings around them, and they were levitated. And it was just these wild stories. And the portal ones from 14 and 15, I talked to these people. You were in this portal? Yeah. And they all talk about the fact that when you're in the portal, you sounds like you're underwater when you're talking, and they all describe the same thing. I've talked to piles of people who've been in these Zendra things. They call them Zendra portal things. And so that technology is there. And I think they have sort of figured, and that's why Ron was very interested. They wanted Kevin Elber to come to Mount Shasta with us to explore this. They wanted to check out this Mount Shasta Mission Rama thing that these people, Mission Rama, are able to open these things up from time to time. And I guess Ron was interested in this. And it indicates that, because he always said everybody's a loon, crook, or worse in the UFO field. And that may be the whole idea, that everybody's talking about anti-gravity and all this kind of stuff is a loon and a crook and tries stealing people's money. And that the real story is the portal story. And that's why it was so important when Sid Goldberg told me that John what's his name got angry in the parking lot and said, it's not about the UFOs, it's about the portals. And I said, he actually said that? He said, yeah, that's what he said. And I said, holy shit, this guy's in the know. He shouldn't have said that. But I do believe they have some sort of technology. I'm not for how advanced it is or whatever, but it as the Canadian said, it'll be the most highly classified secret they've got.
Are these jump rooms still in services? Are they still active? If so, what would they be used for, in your opinion?
Well, that's why I'm not sure. I mean, the story is that they had them. I mean, this idea that Ron had one in the desert. I don't know what it meant. Whether it was one of the stories it was in Salt Lake, because this whole Joe Firmage thing. And Joe Firmage came on an interview one time, and this shows you that this is for real, that there's something to this, because they come on the interview and they're interviewing Big Firmage about his gravity control machine and whatever. And Ron's in the background, and he's sort of in the background. He's not really talking or whatever. And Aaliyah's running the podcast. And then at the end, they say to Kashmir. Now, Kashmir at that time, I think, was 6 years old. And they said, hey, Kashmir, have you got a question for Joe Firmage? And she says, yeah. She comes on and says, so, Joe, how many portals have you got in your house? And he starts laughing. I'm going, this is a 6-year-old kid. Someone told her about portals. And I remember somebody talked to her that I knew and said, he talked to her when the parents weren't around one time and said, hey, so you've been on the other side? And she said, yeah. And says, well, wouldn't you like to go? No, I sort of like it on this side better. She had no interest in going back across again. And so you get this 6-year-old kid telling a story. Then the kid ain't making it up. She's getting it from somewhere. She's getting it from her parents. A 6-year-old kid asked Joe Firmage, how many portals have you got now? So I fell off my chair when I heard her say that. And that's the thing. They got it. I don't know what it is. The only thing I had was that the Mission Rama people from time to time can open these things up, and that there seems to be this thing in the desert. And there was this thing about the actuator, that there's an actuator, and this Ron Sillison guy was getting these actuators. And on one conversation, she said, Leah, Ron Pandolfi's wife, said to him, so John, there's a question here from the audience. It says, are the actuators actually real? And he goes, yeah, or are they mythical? And then they're waiting, and he didn't answer. And then he said, I did answer, yes. And then the next morning she comes on and she posts and she said, did anybody hear what John said last night? And I said, yeah. He said the actuators were real, which is this idea that he goes inside, he reaches inside the portal, he grabs this actuator, and they've got these actuators which turn the portals on, which can do it. But the idea was that you need the other side to let you in. You can't just go through the portal. The other side controls the portal. They have to let you through the portal. So that's basically all I know. But as I said, every time I went down the portal route, there was something at the end of the road. It seemed to fit. Whenever I went anti-gravity and stuff like that, and interdimensional or going to a different planet, that stuff always came up dead. That there was nothing to the story. The portal stuff always came up with something.
Incredible. Incredible. And when you say that they had to let you in on the other side,
yeah.
Who are they?
Whoever's controlling the portal on the other side. It's you can't just walk through the portal. You have to be allowed in. It's sort of like unless you're of the the right vibration or whatever, you're not getting through there. That's what was I told pretty clearly is. And Leah had actually said to someone that it's not what you think it is. Now I don't know what that means. I haven't gotten indications. All I was given indication was, you asked me that question a number of years ago, is this for real? Should I stick around? And I'm telling you right now, it's for real. And that guy is absolutely I've known the guy for years, absolutely knows what he's talking about, but he didn't give me any details. And he's holding the confidence that he got from the Pandolfis as to what's going on. And they said they would explain it to him. I said, have they explained to you how the portals work yet? And he said, no. And all he was told was, it's not what you think it is. So I don't know what that means.
All right. 3 minutes to go, Grant. I want to ask you, with all the news going on around the world, with everything that's happening right now, do we see a stall in UFO talks within the government? Do we see things being pushed to the side because of the dangers right now in the Middle East?
Well, it's the fact that the government, whoever controls the technology, whatever they have, is not going to let this loose. I mean, it's like, I want to know how many submarines we have and how many nuclear weapons are on the submarines and how close we can get the Russians. It's like Eric Walker said to us, or Bush said to Carter, supposedly, curiosity is not sufficient need to know. We don't care. That's what Walker said to us. He said, you're just curious. Admit it, you're just curious. Go study something else. You're never going to get the answer. Just give it up. And then he said to us at one point, he said, and this is what I'd ask all the people in the UFO community, when you get it, what are you going to do with it? It's all curiosity. That's all it is people are curious. It's like a socialist thing. It's like, oh, I got, a new car and I got a new house and now I want this, give me this, the government give me this and give us the answer, whatever. People are just demanding stuff and the government could not care less. This is like submarine stuff. They ain't giving it up. Whoever's got the material, it's highly classified. They've protected this. They know what they're doing, and they're not going to give it up. And I think that people are sort of wasting their time, and it's just going to be more delays. I don't think that it's going anywhere. They basically answered the question that I thought they would answer: is yes, UFOs are real, the whole story. But we don't have no evidence of extraterrestrial. And I think they may be telling the truth on that, or we don't know what's going on. That's what Obama said. We don't know what's going on. And when Trump was asked, did you see the videos? Yeah. What do you think? I don't really believe. And it's like, so, I mean, if it was real, he wouldn't say that. They're basically saying to him, here's the videos. We really know what's going on. What do you think, Mr. President? I don't really believe it's for real. And that's what it is. They don't know what's going on. It's beyond them. Or as Jim Semivan says, people think all we got to do is connect the dots. He said, I'm not sure there's any dots to connect. There does not appear to be any there. Or as he said, and the one I love is he said, it takes you, it taunts you, it brings you along, it gets you closer to reality, but it never takes you home to meet the family. And that's the whole thing. We're never going to figure it out. It's way beyond anything that we've got. We don't have the technology. If we did, I think we'd do better in the Vietnam War in 1975. When I saw it, we'd do better in Ukraine, and we sure wouldn't have lost a war against a bunch of camel jockeys in Afghanistan if we had high technology. We just wouldn't have. We don't have the technology, I don't believe.
Grant Cameron, thank you again for coming on Spaced Out Radio. It's always a pleasure. Enjoy the kickoff to the NHL hockey season and your Winnipeg Jets. But as for us around Spaced Out Radio, I know we'll talk to you soon.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for your time.
Anytime. Grant Cameron, everybody, as he says good night. And we say hello to hour number 3 coming up next on the Mighty SOR. Steve Stockton will kick things off from Among the Missing. Then Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio comes on in and talks about the cryptid reports. What's happening in Bigfoot land? Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear.
This is my shooting board for the kid. You got to give your kid a shooting board and make him shoot. This is what my kid was shooting at thousands of pucks. I'd keep track of every day of those things, and it was actually signed by Brett Hall. He said, "Good luck." So there you go. Give your kid a shooting board and pay him so much for each shot he takes. Line up 10 pucks and let him shoot. Get the rhythm, boom, boom, boom. And next thing, your kid's going to be like Brett Hall or like a super shooter with power to spare.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Always.
Dave.
Take care, buddy.
Talk to you later.
Take care. Good night. All right. Grant Cameron, everybody. I will be right back, everyone. All right. Derek Galloway, you're a little late tonight. Oh, come on, Amy WC. We know you rip hard. We know you rip hard. I'm not worried about it, Michael Boyle. Not worried about it. He was quoting someone, so it's a quote. It's not something of an aha gotcha moment. Here we go, everybody.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bagari is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can help us out by joining our Space Travelers Club on Patreon. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton from the YouTube channel Among the Missing with another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. The Sargasso Sea is renowned for its powerful undercurrents that deter many sailors. It is also well known for phantom ships, with the Mary Celeste, a British merchant ship found adrift in the Sargasso Sea on December 5, 1872, with no crew on board, being the most widely recognized. Ocean currents surround this vast section of the North Atlantic Ocean, and it is well known for the floating sargassum seaweed. The Sargasso Sea is distinct because it is defined by ocean currents rather than land, resulting in a unique ecosystem home to a diverse range of plant and animal life. Scientists have conducted extensive research and exploration on the Sargasso Sea to comprehend the intricate interactions among the ocean currents that converge in this region and the diverse marine life that inhabit it. In 1969, a British businessman and amateur sailor, Donald Crowhurst, went missing when his yacht got stuck in the Sargasso Sea. He participated in the Sunday Times Golden Globe Race, a solo global sailing competition. Unfortunately, his ill-equipped boat started to fill with water. Now, there are clues in Crowhurst's 3 logbooks, a tape recorder, and a 16mm camera found on his yacht, which suggested he began to cable home false trip reports about speed and position 2 weeks into the race, once he realized his inadequate vessel would not win. It is assumed that he went overboard, either intentionally or accidentally, and drowned. The boat showed no signs of a rogue wave or accident that could have caused Crowhurst to fall overboard. The logbooks also detailed how Crowhurst was slowly losing his mind as he drifted aimlessly and alone in the ocean, writing a 25,000-word essay on time travel. "It is finished," he wrote in the logbook at the end of June 1969. "It is finished. It is the mercy. I will resign the game." Crowhurst's body has never been recovered. Over time, the Sargasso Sea has become known for its intriguing incidents of regional disappearances. Despite widespread speculation and folklore, no concrete evidence suggests that anything beyond natural phenomena, such as storms and rogue waves, is accountable for these disappearances. The Sargasso Sea remains a crucial area of focus for scientists and researchers who aim to comprehend the intricate relationships between ocean currents and the diverse marine life in this exceptional ecosystem. And now, the Michigan Triangle. The Michigan Triangle, also known as the Lake Michigan Triangle, is in North America's Great Lakes region. The cities of Ludington and Benton Harbor in Michigan and Manitowoc in Wisconsin generally define the triangle. The Michigan Triangle has a troubling past of ships disappearing without explanation. The earliest reported occurrence goes back to 1891, when the Thomas Hume, a schooner carrying lumber, vanished without a trace. 117 years later, the ship was identified with close to complete certainty at the bottom of the southern part of Lake Michigan. Over the years, several other ships have met with the same fate in the region, including the Rosabelle in 1921, the SS Francisco Morazan in 1960, and Carl D. Bradley in 1958. It is believed that more than 30 vessels have been lost in this mysterious triangle. And it's not only ships that have disappeared. On June 23, 1950, Flight 2501, a Northwest Airlines DC-4, vanished over Lake Michigan while traveling from New York to Minneapolis with 55 passengers and 3 crew members on board. The Michigan Shipwreck Research Association, or the MSRA, a Michigan-based nonprofit, conducts an annual search for the missing airplane. The investigation began in 2004 as a collaboration between Clive Cussler, an author and explorer, and the MSRA. Cussler withdrew from the project in 2013, but his side-scan sonar operator returned to Michigan in 2015, 2016, and 2017 to investigate some leads uncovered by the MSRA. In 2008, a mass grave was found containing the remains of some of the 58 victims of Flight 2501. The grave was unmarked and located in a St. Joseph area cemetery. A black granite marker with the victims' names was placed in Riverview Cemetery in a ceremony attended by 58 family members. The main wreckage of the aircraft has never been found.
Thank you, Steve, for another exciting story from Among the Missing on here on Spaced Out Radio to kick off hour number 3. And Steve will be here each and every night, Monday through Friday, to tell us the stories of the unknown and what's going on out there. If you want more and you want to listen to more, head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing and hit subscribe on his channel. From the missing to the mountains and the mysterious, it is that time of the night where we bring in Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Super Duke, the Cryptid Report with Super Duke. Big Bad Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. It's always a pleasure to have you out here. How you been doing, buddy?
I've been really busy. It's the end of the warm months, so I'm scrambling to get everything that needs to be done outside before winter sets in for 6 months, and I'm stuck indoors for 6 months. Ugh.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Hate
I
it.
know that feeling all too well because we are at that time of the year where that damn white snow can start falling and it won't leave until April.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back in the olden days, it would have been a little bit better because I used to have access to a snowmobile, so I could have still theoretically gone up into the areas that the Bigfoot are hanging around. But we've actually managed to pull that off a couple of times, even without such nice equipment. And they really don't move around very much in the winter, or if they're probably not in the same area anyway, so it's kind of pointless. But yeah. Bah,
Hey, whatever works, my man. Whatever works, and that's all that really matters.
man, I just like being outside as much as possible. So, it's nice we have more campable time here in this state than some of the states I've lived in, but it's still, half of every year you're kind of stuck indoors. That's, it gets really tedious. But I just had a big milestone for my channel on September 24th, hit the 10-year mark. So
Good
my
for you.
YouTube channel's been on for
Congratulations.
10 years, and it's got a 3 1/3 million views overall on it, which isn't really spectacular, but I console myself with the fact that Montana only has a population of 1 million, so I've had 3 times the population of Montana's views on my channel. So somebody's seeing it, so that's always nice.
Well,
Uh,
that's
yep, love it, love it. So, yep, I've been having actually, I'm in one of those weird positions, and I'm sure you've probably been in this one before, Dave, where you get some really amazing information and you're either not allowed to share it or you can't tell where it came from. That's really
yeah.
irritating.
And you know what? That is the biggest argument. I just mentioned that on the other day where we were talking about sources. I mean, if you give up your sources, everybody who says name names, but if you give up your sources, you're cutting off a major artery to how you get your information.
Yep,
Can't do
yep. Yeah, and then, I can't like go in depth on this, but this is one of those sources that if I made them mad, they would just step on me and squish me. So I'm definitely not going to be talking about what they were telling me. And unfortunately, I have to leave it at that. But it seems that in February, second week in February, 50 years ago, is when I had my first sighting. And this, just about 2, 3 weeks ago, I actually got to find out what it was that I had seen. Just finally, I showed the picture to somebody that could ID what it was. And according to them, it's a Janosqua. So for anybody that's been following my channel forever and wondering what it was when I saw when I was a little kid out sledding, pretty reliable source claims that's what it was. So be careful when you're out in the cold winter and there's giant hungry predators wandering around. That's all I can tell you about that one.
Well, what is your research area giving you this year, man?
Oh, the usual, heard some vocalizations and wood knocks and rock clacks, and got probably more tracks video this year than we ever have before, a ridiculous amount. But the area that we were in, it's like really good for tracks, and occasionally you hear some vocals or something, but there's nothing for tree structures there. It's just wherever it is they're making them, we haven't found it yet. So we haven't been able to get any of that kind of stuff. And usually when we're in our main research area, that's where we're finding all the, 4, 5, 6 story tall tree structures, the really gigantic, ridiculously huge things. So that's it's like a change of pace. It's like, well, we're not going to find any giant structures this year because we don't know where they're making them, if they are making them around here. But we're going to find plenty of huge tracks. And we got 3 different tracks from one individual that's leaving a 21-inch footprint. So that's pretty colossally big. And then, of course, like I said earlier this year, I got the 31-inch track up there at the ghost town that we're, pretty sure it wasn't a Bigfoot. It was probably a giant or something, but that's just colossal and scary. And I've been trying to get all my Bigfoot expert friends to look at it and debunk it and go, hey, this is something else, right? It's a tire rut, right? And they look at it and go, no, that's a track. And I'm like, no crap. I wanted you to tell me it wasn't a track.
Oh my.
No, that looks like a track to me. They're all going, and I'm like, I still want that to be a tire rut. No, it looks like a track. Damn it.
Oh.
Don't tire ruts have toes in the front and a heel mark in the back? No.
Oh, it's enough to drive you crazy, Super Dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, about 7, 8 feet away from it, we found a track from same individual that Mike found a track from up there about 3 years ago, about a mile away from there. and he's leaving tracks that are around 20 inches long. And this other thing had sunk into the ground like 3 times as far as he had, and it was 7, 8 feet away. And you're looking at him going, well, I thought that was a big track. That's like nothing compared to this thing over here. Oh my God, why are we here? These things are crazy big. 31-inch track scales up to 16.5 feet tall. So yeah, scary. And speaking of giants, interesting information that's come out recently from a source that claims he knows something. I don't know. But he's talking about the Anunnaki and the Nephilim. And the Anunnaki had 2 different branches to it, apparently. The Aesir, which, yes, it's the same pronunciation as the Norse gods, the Aesir, and kind of the same description, about 12 feet tall and blonde and kind of Nordic-y looking and stuff. And, some of them were dark-haired and everything. And this is all kind of the same group that liked to bully humans around and rule them and took over the Mesopotamia area, a lot of the old kings on the kings list, all the way up to what's his face, the famous hero Gilgamesh, who was also said to have been a giant. And they're all portrayed as being like about 15 feet tall. So, of course, this fits the description of the Anunnaki. It also fits the description of the Nephilim. Now, what this source brought up is that there was a second group of them that were not interested in lording it over humans. They were actually even bigger, and they liked a colder climate. So they moved up into like Northern Europe, Siberia, across into North America, and it spread all over the northern part of the world by about 200,000 years ago. And they didn't lord it over humans or have any interest in interacting with them. They kept to themselves, usually single individuals or sometimes a small family, and they would just scare the humans away because didn't want nothing to do with them. So apparently here in North America, we had both kinds, because we definitely had the mound builder giants that were lording it over the tribes of natives over on the eastern part of the country along the Mississippi Valley. And then you also get these reports of the red-haired giants, like in Lovelock Cave. And same thing as the giant of Kandahar, dead ringer, same description, 15 to 20 feet tall, pale white skin, red hair. And they are the Nemnir. I think I pretty much covered most of that. Now, the other interesting thing that doesn't get mentioned in this, but definitely ties into it, if you go and look at the Norse description of, what does a frost giant look like? Well, it's got red hair and white skin. This is what they're calling the Nemnir. The Aesir, those are the Norse gods. They're mostly blonde. The Nemnir, those are the frost giants. So, okay, this is this direct parallel to Norse myth that's coming out of this Anunnaki breakdown here. But one thing that they're leaving out is the other thing the Norse actually mentioned. As far as I know, they didn't mention the Nemnir. Perhaps they did and I missed it. But they did mention the Vanir. And the Vanir were actually interbreeding with the Aesir, and they had gods that were recognized too, like Frey and Freya, the king and queen of the elves. The Vanir were the elves. So you've got the frost giants, the Nemnir, the Aesir, which were the Norse gods, and the Vanir, which were the elves. And all of this stuff just kind of ties together really neatly. And the interesting thing is that according to their mythology, there was this connection between these giant people and the Fey realm, which would be the Vanir, the elves, that don't get mentioned directly in this Anunnaki information, because they're not Anunnaki, they're Fey.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I've never heard of a lot of these names that you've mentioned.
Well, in Old Norse mythology, all of the gods were the Aesir, the tribe of Aesir, and then they have precursors to that. If you want to go back and look at Norse mythology, there was a couple generations before they popped in, kind of the same thing as the Olympians, Zeus, and the whole pantheon over there. But in the Norse mythology, you've mainly got Odin One-Eye, who's the wise guy that's running the show. Thor, who's the most powerful god and warrior god. God of Thunder, kind of like the Marvel character, which is they stole that from Norse mythology. And then Loki, which same thing. They got him directly from Norse mythology. As a matter of fact, they just ripped off all the Marvel stuff from Norse mythology. Some of it's accurate, some of it a lot less so. And Norse myth is kind of like exactly the opposite of almost every other mythology, in that it starts out with the world is made out of the death of a troll, Ymir. That they actually killed this troll, and they used his skull to form the sky. And they used his body to form the earth. His mountains and stuff were made from his bones. Trees were made from his hair. And so the whole earth was made out of Ymir. Oceans was his blood, et cetera, et cetera. And then the only thing that was holding chaos in check was the gods being there and kind of keeping everything at bay, because you had the frost giants from the north that were going to come down and freeze everything solid, ice age. And then you had the fire giants from the south that would come up and barbecue everything, which is, probably a reference to volcanic activity or something. So the gods are keeping all this chaos in check. And then at some point things would get out of hand, and a whole chain of events would lead to all the bad guys basically attacking the Aesir at the same time. And it would be Ragnarok, the end of the world. They would be destroyed. And then the world would reset and start all over again. So they had this cyclical worldview. But one of the interesting things about their viewpoint on it is kind of like, in the end, the good guys lose. Everything gets destroyed, and then it all resets and starts over again. And there's some people that have looked at this and went, well, is this actually a description of what happened when Atlantis sank, the end of the last ice age, major earth destruction? Was that actually Ragnarok, and the Aesir literally got wiped out? And that was kind of the end of it. And then afterwards, they were remembered in this, cultic religion that continued on for thousands of years afterwards.
I don't know where you get the time to study this stuff, but that's why we love you, Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio.
So anyway, there you go. There's a breakdown on the frost giants, the Nemnir, the bigger than their buddies, the Aesir, aka Anunnaki, who love to interfere with humans and lord it over us and pretend they're gods and make us go fetch them burgers and their slippers and a beer while they were sitting around watching the dancing girls or whatever it was they had going for entertainment. The Nemnir were just the opposite. They were hiding in the cold north and trying to stay away from all that foolishness and be ignored, which makes me wonder if there's some of them up there still being ignored because they weren't getting directly involved in any of these fights, that apparently the other ones on the continent got into a big fight with the natives here and got on the losing end of the stick and got chased across the Siberian land bridge back over into Siberia, which is why they're not around here anymore. But if the Nemnir weren't involved and were up far north, like, north of where Dave is, there could still be some of those wandering around. They could even be a little bit further south. In fact, they could be wandering around right where I found that 31-inch track.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. 31 inches. Holy cow.
Get a tape measure out and look at what 31 inches looks like. That's on my May research video in case anybody wants to go see it. It's right at the beginning.
It's 2.5 feet.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I had a guest on my show who found a set of tracks, like 4 or 5 of those right in a row in the Wallowa Mountains. And these were good ones. You could see the toes and everything. And the first track he found, he was looking at the little depressions at the front of it and go, isn't that cool the way all those elk stepped right at the beginning of that mud puddle like that and makes it look like it's toes. And then he took a closer look at it and went, those aren't elk tracks. Those are friggin' toes. This isn't a mud puddle. It's a huge track. Well, there's got to be more tracks. So he looked behind him about 9 feet. There was another one. And then he went in front of him. There was 2 more, and it went over to a swamp. And then in the swamp, there was potholes where it had been stepping through the swamp. And it was like knee deep. He wasn't going to go wade in there and follow the trail. But he wisely decided to leave the area.
Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio is here. And when we return, I want to get Duke's opinion on this new Bigfoot video that is making the tracks, pun intended, around the internet right now. Spaced Out Radio continues for the final half hour. I don't know if you've seen that video, Super Duke, but it's an interesting video, that's for sure.
Who put it out?
These people who were on a train in Southwest Colorado.
Was it recorded recently?
Yeah,
I don't think
just
I've seen
came
that
out.
one.
Just came out like 10 hours ago.
Man, no, I haven't seen it. I've not had a
Okay.
chance to look at it.
Well, we'll play it here during the show, okay? I've got it lined up.
Hey, ready? I'm gonna go finish my cigarette.
You go. Super Duke. Super Duke. Lightwalkers. Show you guys in a bit. I think it's Cherry Pepsi Mike walking through the forest or through the desert mountain. That's what I think it is. Looks about the same. Nope. I don't get invited to those things, AA Ron. Not big enough. Big J, how you doing? Hmm. Super Duke. Super Duke.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that there's also an analog to the Nimnir in the Himalayas, because remember, they're supposed to live places that are cold. And when you talk to the monks in the Himalayas, they say there's 4 kinds of big, nasty hominids there. There's the Zute, which is the little one, which is, like 4 foot tall. And then there's one that's like human size. And then there's what we think of as the Yeti, which is like 10 feet tall. And then there's an even bigger one called a Nyalmo, which is supposed to be about 15 feet tall. And they're supposed to look like giant humans with pale skin and red hair that live Stone Age living. Exact description of the same thing.
Wow.
That's pretty creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bama. Yeah, I'm glad we got video of that giant track, but it's still disturbing. Again, still hoping that it's not. And by the way, speaking of disturbing, Portlock, Alaska. 1921, 1951. Next time you're in Portlock, pick up one of these shirts.
Very cool, Super Duke.
Yep. And that's when the town was abandoned in 1951. Score Nantinak 1, humans 0.
Thank you, T-Bone.
And how are you doing?
All right, we got about 30 seconds. Big thank you tonight to T-Bone, ×2, Jen B, Cat Chaser with the hat trick, Chink, Major League, and Dude, and Pam, and Lori, and Simon, and Big Dog, and Mama Catherine, and Human Carl for the great super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. And here we go, everybody. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join the Space Travelers Club right now on Patreon. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio is here, and we are going to talk about this brand new Bigfoot video that came out of the desert mountains of Colorado. And Duke, I know you haven't seen this, so I'm very curious to get your opinion on this video. So it's 18 seconds long. It can be seen on Twitter, and it's taken from a train. And you see that in this video, it's pretty hard because what is the alleged Sasquatch is very, very hard to see. You see the creature walking, and then all of a sudden it kneels down and sits on its butt, and like it's kind of viewing the train as it's walking or as it's watching on by, and then the train kind of goes past it. I mean, I don't know if that's a suit or not, because from the distance it's hard to tell. What do you think there, Duke?
I can't tell. It's too small on the screen. If I had a blown up version of it and I could see the body proportion, I could tell you right away if it's a human or somebody in a suit, or a Bigfoot.
Well, I know you're a fan of MeWe, so I will quickly send it to your MeWe so that way you can view it as well. And, oh yeah, I got to go through all these ad X-outs here for a second. So if you want to click on that link I just sent you on MeWe, because I am curious to get your opinion. And this one is, in my opinion, really hard to tell. It's obviously taken in the mountains, where it still looks like a, pretty rocky with small plants around, and then this big creature comes walking through and sits down on its hiney. And it's kind of looking around and kind of moving around, like it's trying to get comfortable while it's sitting, and then just kind of fades away. You see it take right off the bat of the video. See it take 3 big steps and then sit down. Like whether it's eating something, I don't know. It's tough to say.
An elusive creature.
Don't know if I can make it bigger on my end.
Yeah, let me see your camera. I'll do it.
Yeah, I can see what you're looking at in the middle there. It's just I hate cell phone video. This is one of the reasons why.
Well, it still needs to be analyzed. I mean,
Well, I'm sure one of the big dogs like Thinker Thunker will have it sent to him in short order. He'll be doing a breakdown on it. All you really need to do is just be able to zoom in close enough on the middle of it and then put it on slow-mo and watch frame by frame when he's walking, because their body proportion is different than humans. You can't put a human in a suit that looks like an actual Bigfoot. It won't work. Our joints are in the wrong places. Their arms and legs are the same length and ours aren't. As a matter
Right.
of fact, some of them even have proportions beyond that. I just showed you guys the T-shirt from Portlock, Alaska, a town abandoned repeatedly because the Bigfoot were killing people and chased them out. In a local area, they're called the Nantinak, and that's down in the Kenai Peninsula. But if you go up just north of there into the mainland part of Alaska, by Lake Iliamna, which supposedly has a sea monster in it, there's also the local type of Bigfoot that live there are called the Urayuli, and they're exactly the opposite as the way the Natnak are described. They're very shy and retiring. They avoid humans, and their arms are supposed to be proportionally even longer, so much so that in order to go on all fours, all they basically have to do is just lean forward a little bit, and they're on their knuckles. You still got the sound in that video playing.
Yeah, let me just. That's weird because the tab is muted on my end, but that's okay. That's okay. My big thing right now, Duke, is this. Like, to me, when I look at this video, I do know it's hunting season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's a good chance there could be hunters up there getting ready. Maybe they found an elk or a deer or a bear or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
There is a good chance. But
Well,
if
it
you
depends on where you are. I mean, like over here right now, it isn't even gun season yet. It's still bow hunting season.
True.
This is up in Colorado. They probably, they might have gun season going. They're probably just on like black powder guns or, bow season still.
Yeah. See up here? We're in a different season. Like you can use.
Yeah, you
your
get
rifle.
winter sooner. That's why.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, I want to believe it. If you slow down the image, you can see what looks to be, when he sits down, a pointed head.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that kind of catches me off guard, when you slow the video down and you watch its legs, to me it looks like pants.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah, like I said, I'd have to take a lot closer look at it to be able to make a call on it. We just had, I just found out today that we had a Bigfoot conference here in Montana yesterday, and I didn't even know about it. And apparently it was up somewhere by Kalispell, and they had all the local or usual luminaries there, Dave Pilates, Dr. Meldrum, blah, blah, blah. And
same people, different title.
The same people that are always at every conference. And my friends stopped down and told me all about it today because they were there. And they're from Hawaii, so they don't really have Bigfoot research going on over there. So they thought that was really cool. They got to go to a Bigfoot conference, and I thought it was hilarious that they were kind of like really unimpressed by what they heard while they were there. So, but they're fans of my channel anyway, so I love them.
So what else do you got going on for us? You got any stories for us tonight?
Yeah, actually, I got a reading from Searching for the Unfindable. A new word now entering the English lexicon thanks to William putting it in his book title and getting yelled at. Here's what William has to say about Bigfoot tracks, and keeping in mind that William has been doing this the same amount of time as me, 45 years. And if you would like to meet William and you are in the area of Arkansas, Keith Crabtree, the legendary Boggy Creek monster himself, the guy that wore the suit in that most famous of all Bigfoot movies 50 years ago, is throwing a big outdoor camp out right down by Caddo Lake, a notoriously very heavy Bigfoot area. And he's doing like a Halloween camp out. If you want to find out about it, go to his YouTube, Keith Crabtree, get all the information. It's free. They're premiering the movie Bogman, and they have the whole cast and the crew that made the movie while they're there. And you get to hang out with a whole bunch of like for real Bigfoot researchers, including the one that I'm about to do a little reading from his book, which is William Lunsford. And William says, I do not buy that Bigfoot hide their tracks so humans won't find them. They are what they are. If not How could prints located next to windows by a peeping Tom Bigfoot be explained? How about other reports of them in close quarters with houses or in freshly plowed fields or gardens? If you think they don't know those dwellings are occupied by people, you severely underestimate their intelligence in that case and overestimate it in the other. I saw the print from an 8-footer a witness in Texas had found in a patch of woods directly adjacent to a gun range. 3 people were with him at the time. The tracks ran right beside the fence, marking the range boundary. Well, when I was up in northern Montana, there was a gun range up there, and I went walking about 75 yards in the woods and found a giant teepee structure. So gun ranges don't scare them. No, they know what guns. They're not scared. In Arkansas, we found and photographed 2 clear prints in series that were on the edge of a muddy road, with an observable third one where he apparently stepped onto the soft shoulder and sank to his shins. These were less than a quarter mile from a popular roadside park. I found them crossing mud puddles, rain bogs, and even cattle trails. One of the strangest places was a partial print I found in the middle of a freshly dug mole mound. Over the years, I've become friends with various members of law enforcement in the surrounding towns. When I receive a report from them about anything related to Bigfoot, I tend to take special notice. One wet spring afternoon, I talked to a county deputy who had been dispatched to a call from a local resident. That same morning, he witnessed and verified prints that appeared crossing a rain-soaked country road. They ended in the brush and only 50 yards from 3 houses. None of the residents had ever seen anything strange before, though a few weeks earlier, one mysteriously had a goat come up missing. This goat was a billy with horns 1.5 feet long. It was kept inside a wire fence pasture protected by 2 Great Pyrenees dogs. I put great stock in all these officers tell me, but it was an experience with another officer from a different county that really threw me for a loop. One Sunday afternoon, William and Reese, his son, were casting a track they had found during the previous day's hunting. It was on some land owned by the government, but where public access was still granted. Both were well armed. Trying to be extremely sneaky with our project, William says, we looked around each time before we entered the woods. Evidently, our crossing the roadway with the needed materials had aroused the mistrust of some distant onlookers. As we popped in and out of the woods for the final totes of supplies, a sheriff's car unexpectedly came cycling down the road, heading straight for us. It's hard to look inconspicuous when you're outfitted like a member of the A-team, but we tried anyway, continuing what we were doing and not looking up. He pulled directly behind my truck and got out. "What are you guys doing?" he naturally asked. I wanted to first be sure to try and diffuse any suspicion or confrontation that might result from our having guns. As Arkansas law requires, I declared to him that Reese and I were both legally armed, openly, and concealed. Then I tried to think of how best to respond without him thinking I was being a smart aleck or under the influence of drugs. So William says, "Well, if you'll promise not to laugh or tell anyone, I'll tell you. We're fixing to cast a Bigfoot track. If you give your word not to tell anyone what we're doing, you can follow us and watch." The officer says, "Really? A Bigfoot track? I want to see that." Just in case we weren't being straight with him, he used his lawman instincts to skeptically stay behind us. That was good with me, too. I was afraid that, should he lead, he might accidentally step right in the middle of it. After a short trip through the maze of bushes, I pointed towards the ground in front of us, and his eyes widened like saucers. When confronted with the reality of what he was now seeing, his expression of amazement was worth the intrusion into our efforts. For the first time in his life as an officer, he was experiencing what his training could not prepare him for. He walked over and bent forward for a closer look. "That is unreal. I was sure you guys were pulling my leg. Can I take a picture to show my wife? She'll never believe it." And he has a picture of the track in the book. He called her on the spot and took photos of the print, both empty, when filled with plaster. It was an impressive memento, so large it looked more like a cavern with toes than a track. After standing there with us for a few more minutes, he then reciprocated something with us that we weren't expecting. He says, "Let me tell you guys something. Every night when I'm on patrol, I'm required to slowly drive down this road with my windows down, listening for anybody that might be hiding in the woods. I never get nervous anywhere except right where we are parked. Then I get that uneasy feeling that I'm being watched. As soon as I'm about 50 yards past, it goes away, but it comes back on my return trip. Then when I'm past, it's heading out, it goes away again, but only right there at that spot." Then the story got deeper. My daddy swears years ago, one night, one of these things crossed the road in front of his car. He didn't drink, so we know he saw something. But we all thought it was probably a bear. It happened about 3 miles from where we're at right now. I guess he was right. And so then William says, now you know for sure the answer to both. I'm not sure the confirmation that a Bigfoot lives where you work every night alone gave him any measure of comfort. I mean, well, but his glance my way assured me that my good intentions had failed. There are certain traits that can help identify tracks as authentic. Recognizing actual tracks is not always easy. It is when all the tracks are the same that suspicion should be aroused. Tracks that are found next to a roadway or a walk path should immediately flash a caution sign, but do not always mean they're fakes. Perfect cookie cutter tracks are a good indicator of phonies. The first thing to look for in finding tracks is something out of the ordinary, like upturned, flattened, or disturbed plants or undergrowth. And that's what most of the tracks you're going to find are going to be, just flattened down plants. The next would be impressions or divots and otherwise smooth ground. Game trails would be next. A primary reason tracks appear different is the type of environment and soil where they're found. A majority of the places that William does research are forested. Most of them are covered in at least an inch of pine needles, fallen leaves, scrub plants, or some type of vine. Plus, many of the roots of the trees that grow there along the surface of the ground rather than deep into it. And that type of surface does not lend itself to tracks exhibiting precise toe distinction like those found in sand, mud, or snow. And I have the same problem up here, except we have even less lowland, wetland, soft ground, and they don't call them the muddy mountains. It's the Rocky Mountains. So finding tracks here is even more difficult. Anyway, William says rather there will be an impression of the foot in the carpet, possibly the dirt underneath, but it will require inserting your fingers in to verify the indentations made by the toes. Sometimes even this isn't the case, as Bigfoot possess a soft sole on their foot, which they do. They call it an Osman pad, which inhibits the leaving of that kind of track. The leafy matter, unless wet, just springs back up to its normal placement, and the only clue left might be a few upside-down leaves. Worm dirt, pellets manufactured as crawlers process food from the ground is not good for leaving detailed tracks either.
All the good stuff.
It's about like trying to make a snowball out of dry snow, and it generally leads to more frustration than success. It's really lucky a lot of times that any tracks ever show up at all. Then he says, one of the worst scenarios a track caster can have is what is locally called gumbo mud. The type of earth where this occurs is indistinct when dry, but occurs for anyone around it when it gets wet because it gums up around whatever touches it and requires a scrubbing or jet wash to remove. It's as slick as black ice and can have you on your back or your behind quicker than breakdancing. It sticks to tires, feet, boots, shoes in clumps. All along whatever surface it touches, it pulls out in a glob. Any kind of foot that touches it rarely appears to have toes at all, but appears as an elliptical circle, which is another huge hindrance in the world of Bigfooting. One positive thing that can be said for it is that it leaves an exact impression of the length and width. So if the print left within it is 18 inches long, you can guarantee the foot that made it is 18 inches as well. So shouldn't all prints be alike if they're made by the same kind of animal? And the answer to that is a simple no. Just like with people, no two footprints are exactly the same size. And of course, there's different individuals that are different sizes and ages. Though Bigfoot does have a classic oversized stomper, not all of them are going to be 7 to 9 feet tall. So some tracks are going to be comparatively shorter with the size of the smaller creatures. Some may be undersized because of the gender or age of the animal. And he says here in southern Arkansas and northeast Texas, most of the adult prints are 15 to 17 inches long, with the width being around half the length. And that's one thing that we commonly find up here too, except the average size here is more like in the 17 to 19 inch range for the males. But you can usually tell that even if you can't find a complete track, you can pretty much tell how long it is as long as you have the front part of the foot right behind the toes, the ball of the foot. If you take that width and double it, that's the length of the track.
That is huge. Huge.
Yeah, well, when we were, that's one of the bigger tracks that we found this year. We were up at Research Area A one of the few times we were up there. We found a 15-incher that had been squished into the sand just like a cookie cutter, only one track. And then I went a little bit further up the river, and there was a little a little flowage that came into it there that was maybe like 3 feet wide. And one of the big ones had stepped across it, and he didn't step completely onto the far side. His toes came down and dug a rut in the embankment. You could see where all the toes dug out part of the embankment, and then the front of the foot crushed it. So the back of his foot was probably partially in the water, so he couldn't get a length on the track. But we measured across the front of it, which was 11 inches. So that one was, like 21, 22 inch long foot. And it's obvious why he crushed the bank when he stepped down on it, because he was probably really, really heavy.
1 minute to go. And of course, Duke, we always appreciate when you are on the air with us. So thank you again for coming on, and we will talk to you next week. Do me a favor in the next minute here. Tell everybody where they can find World Bigfoot Radio.
Well, you can find me on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey. I have support group on MeWe. That's my primary one, World Bigfoot Central. I'm also on World Bigfoot TV. If you're on Facebook, go sub that one, because that will tell you when I have shows coming out that, YouTube doesn't bother to notify you of. And of course, I also have my main research group on YouTube, on Facebook, which is Montana Bigfoot Project. And I will soon be setting up on the formerly Twitter, now known as X platform, which I haven't bothered to be on yet. But I'm getting bugged by other people that I need to go over there and set up an account. So I'll be over there soon, too.
It's always awesome chatting some Sasquatch with you, Super Duke. From World Bigfoot Radio, we very much appreciate your time.
Right on. I always love being here. Love you guys. Everybody in the chat room, take care. Don't hug the Wookiees.
Yeah, they're a little dangerous at times. Yeah, and sometimes they go to give you a little love bite. They end up biting your shoulder off. But it was an accident. They didn't mean to. They didn't mean to.
They don't do it on purpose.
No. All right. We say thank you to Super Duke for coming on the show with the Cryptid Report. Thank you to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. And, of course, Grant Cameron filling up the first 2 hours of tonight's show. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright of Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yep, we've got room for them too. Good night. Good job, Super Duke.
I rent a day.
You rent a day. We
I
own
rent a day.
night.
I don't bother waking up till afternoon because I'm up all night.
Exactly.
Usually. I got my video editing done earlier today, so I don't have to stay up all night unless I want to be one day ahead, which, now that I've been chugging coffee to be on Dave's show, I might just stay up and work on another video and be one day ahead.
All right, Super Duke, we'll let you go tonight. Thank you for being here, my man.
Love you guys. I'll have something else interesting next time. It won't be frost giants and Bigfoot tracks will be something completely different, like Monty Python always used to say. Now for something completely different.
Wow.
And until then, remember, never trust those dang saucer jockeys with their probe happiness and tell them to get off your lawn.
I hear you. Well, to our spaced out radio audience, I'm going to edit this in the morning. I am dead tired. Want to say a big thank you to Simon, Big Dog, Mama Catherine, Human Carl, Lori, Pam, 3 times for Cat Chaser, Dude, Major Lee, T-Bone ×2, Dutch Hank, and Jen B for the amazing super chats. And everyone, don't forget to do some shopping on our website, spacedoutradio.com. And of course, we're here for you 7 days a week. And what I would do if I were you, I'd start planning May 10th through 12th. Yeah. Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. I'm going to sign the paperwork tomorrow. And then it's time to book in. We're going to need Aussie Ange to fly in from Australia again. Jim from the UK, you better come in as well. We need some Dutch Hank action. Yeah, we do. So I'll talk to you all tomorrow, guys. Take care.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.